We'll start. So good morning. Welcome to the Board of Behavioral Sciences Policy and Advocacy Committee. I'm Christina Wong. I'm the chair of the Policy and Advocacy Committee. So today is October 9th, 2020. And the time now is 9:02 a.m. So this meeting is occurring at various locations pursuant to Executive Order N25-20 dated March 12, 2020. So today's meeting will be conducted using the following guidelines. So this meeting is live streamed and will be posted on BBS website. And so during the meeting, please mute your microphone. And for the member of the public, please also mute your microphone and also turn off your video. So after the introduction, there is an opportunity for public comments for the items not on the agenda. Please limit to your comments to 2 minutes. Also, during public comments, the board cannot engage in any discussion or take action on any matter that is raised, except to decide whether to place the matter on the agenda of a future meeting. And so let me explain about the discussion items. So for the discussion items, there will be a presentation first, and then at the end of the presentation, I will invite the board members to make comments. And board members, please unmute your phone before you speak, and then mute your phone after you finish. And then we will proceed to invite the public to make comments. And so at this point, please make sure that you use the raise hand function to indicate that you want to speak. And our staff will invite the public, according to the order. And please limit also, your comment to about 2 minutes, or making sure that it stays with the to the agenda item being discussed. And then after the comments, and also, so for the public, when you speak, please also, view your, unmute, turn on your video. I was thinking about unmute your, your phone, but please also, you can turn on your video so that we can see you. And please also introduce yourself, and so that we know who you are. And then after you finish your comment, you can turn off your video and also mute yourself. And then for those who are accessing the meeting through a phone, I'll ask your comments following the comments by those who are attending via Zoom. So at the end of each discussion, I will call for the votes, and then if it's needed, then we'll vote, and then we'll move on to the discussion items. So that's kind of how the order of the discussion items will be. And I think this is about it. So, and I think we can start by also establishing a quorum. So Christina, would you please help us establish a quorum?
Good morning. Christina Wong.
Here.
Deborah Brown.
Here.
Max Disposti.
Here.
Wendy Strack.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you so much. So let's see, at this time, I would like the board staff and the board member to introduce yourself. So Christina, you want to do it, or should I do it? Go ahead and invite the people.
Okay, we'll start with you, Christina.
Christina Wong, LCSW member.
Max Disposti.
Max Disposti, him is pronounced public member.
Deborah Brown.
Public member.
Wendy Strack.
Wendy Strack, public member.
Thank you.
And should we do the staff introduction? Normally we do, but should we go ahead and do it?
We can do that. We'll start with Kim.
Kim Madsen, BBS, EO.
Steve.
And Steve Sodergren, BBS, Assistant Executive Officer.
Roseanne.
Roseanne Helms, Legislative Manager for the board.
Christy Berger.
Hi, Christy Berger, Regulatory Analyst for the board.
Sabina.
Sabina Knight, Legal Counsel for the board.
And I'm Christina Kitamura.
Thank you very much. So thank you for staff and board members' introduction. So I think the next agenda item is the public comments for items not on the agenda. So this is the time when the public can make the comment. So let me remind everybody again, please limit your comments to about 2 minutes. So Lisa, maybe you can help us, have the public, to introduce yourself.
Yes, if you have any comments, if you can use the raise hand feature in Zoom, I can monitor that.
So let's go with Rudy. Rudy is, since I see you. So Rudy Whitmore, please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Rudy Whitmore. I'm an APCC in Southern California. How are you all this morning?
Great, thank you.
I am super concerned about the more than 100% price increase that's coming for all of us, especially how the board has recently spoken in advocacy of Black lives and minority people within our community, and wondering how there's going to be any kind of equity when a lot of us are working for minimum wage as APCCs, when a lot of us are already making choices between bills and being able to pay testing. And I'm wondering, are there waivers? Is there literally any consideration of how this impacts low income, people of color, and other people who are actively working to make this field a better, more inclusive place?
I think, yeah, Kim, I was thinking that, thank you. I was thinking that this is probably a good, time, to, give the public, some, share some information and explanation, since we're not discussing. This is already a rule already. So Kim, would you please give us some
Sure.
information? Yes.
First, board is hearing your concerns. I would invite you to go to our website. There is a frequently asked question document that explains the history and the background and the rationale for the fee increase that's coming. But it is something that has been discussed since at least, I know at least early 2018, more likely last 2017, and it's been presented at several board meetings. So we hear you.
Thank you very much, Ms.
I'm
Ruth.
sorry, that actually addressed nothing. But in addition to that, it is also something that so many of us were unaware of. And I get that there are these meetings, and most of us hear about it through Facebook groups that we're part of. And I understand that fees haven't increased in 20 years and that within 3 years we won't be financially solvent. But I'm wondering why it's not a gradual increase, and why that burden of the last 20 years of sounding like fiscal irresponsibility is falling on my cohort.
And, we can't get into a discussion about that because it is public comment, but we do hear you and thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Whitmore.
Okay, Rebecca
Let's
Gonzalez.
move on to the next one. And, yes.
Rebecca Gonzalez.
Rebecca Gonzalez, National Association of Social Workers, California chapter. I just felt, I have to relay that we have also been contacted by people who are concerned about the fee increase. And during the time of the pandemic, we do have social workers who have lost their jobs or they're experiencing hiring freezes. And I was hoping that there is some way for people who are experiencing extreme hardship to be able to have a reduced fee. I'm not sure if there is a process for that. I probably should know, but I'm just wondering. But I did feel like it was my duty to relay that we are hearing from our social workers.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Anybody else, Lisa?
Yes, Kyle Jackson.
Oh, the lighting is bad. Hello, hi. Yes, I'm Kyle Jackson. So the reason that I wanted to dial in today is that I know that this committee is involved with policy, advocacy, and even today I saw on the agenda there are a lot of amendments to legislation, like within the Business and Professions Code. And I just wanted to point out, really as a member of the public, that legislative action alone means very little, of course, unless it's explained in non-legalese to members of the public, as well as to Board of Behavioral Sciences staff, and to remember that even if this turns into another 11-hour meeting to discuss technical matters in a piece of legislation, it accounts for nothing if that doesn't translate into some kind of consumer protection. And I understand that there's a need to balance both the property rights of counselors who have licenses from the board, but also consumers who sometimes need to hold counselors accountable. And it's not the clear instances of malfeasance where it's a problem. I think there's a good process to address things like overt racism, overt sexual harassment within the industry. But when it comes to the areas that are not 100% clear, I think the borderlines need to have a lot of thought and how consumers can understand what those boundary lines are and what our steps are. And finally, the last thing I'll say is that I wouldn't be dialing in today if all of that were already solved to 100% satisfaction. And this does follow a lengthy process that brought me to this call today. And I just hope that that will inform the decision-making process that goes forward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jackson. Yeah. So, Lisa, who is anybody else?
Josie Baker.
So, Ms. Baker, if you can turn on, yes, I see you. Good morning, Ms. Baker.
Good morning, all. My name is Josie Baker. I am a LCSW that works for Kaiser as a medical social worker. The agenda item number 7 is listed. I'm really excited that you have been willing to take this up. I think Kim Madsen referred to my email that she forwarded to you. I guess I just want to again reiterate that I really want to partner with you. I have my colleague, I have a number of colleagues on this call, but my colleague Nifam, who actually has very personal experience with this issue in terms of the disparity between the nonprofit and profit world of clinical supervision. So I really look forward to having a productive conversation, and I'm happy to collaborate. We're both happy to collaborate in any way that we can to be helpful and point out kind of the nuances.
Thank you so much, Ms. Baker. I remember, you all, came and, and really share your concerns. I'm glad that the board has been taking action. And so, looking forward to continue participating, to partnering with you all.
Yes, thank you so much,
Ms. Baker. So Lisa, anybody else?
Nobody else has their hand raised on Zoom.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Yes, Kim, go ahead.
Kim does.
We have a few folks on the phone. Does anybody, we have a K Rob raised a hand.
Oh,
and
yeah,
there's some members on the phone where can't use the raised hand feature.
Okay. So Kim, maybe you can invite, since you can.
Let's start with the phone numbers. I see a phone number ending in 2200. Did you wish to make a comment?
Hi, this is Nifam. I'm from Kaiser. I'm waiting to discuss clinical supervision regulations.
Okay, good. Thank you. Alrighty, I also see a phone number ending in 0403. Did you want to make a comment during the public comment period? Okay, that individual is not unmuting their phone, so I'm going to presume the answer is no. I also see a phone number ending in 3381. Did you wish to make a comment during this public comment period? If so, please unmute your phone. Okay, I'm going to presume that they don't want to make a comment. The last phone number I see before I get to K-Rob ends in 3387. Did you wish to make a public comment? If so, please unmute your phone. Okay, at this time, K-Rob, if you would like to unmute your microphone, and if you have the ability to do a video, you can open that up as well.
Hi, can you see me?
Yes, we can see you. Welcome.
Hi, good morning. My name is Kiana Robinson. I'm an AMFT in Southern California. And I just wanted to piggyback off of what some of my other colleagues mentioned about the financial hardship, and also a lot of us are just concerned about, with us also taking away our personal psychotherapy hours, how we can get some type of support for ourselves during the pandemic, if the board can offer or has been in discussion, with just what, I can't remember what my colleague said, but those who are in the community of color, we are trying our best during this time, to provide for others, but also provide for ourselves as well. So I think just a little bit of consideration. Obviously, we as the public are not involved in all of the legislation, all of the conversations that you guys deal with on a regular basis when deciding this fee increase. But I think that, and I did see the explanation and it's understandable, but I think we're just looking for some type of support on our end. And also there was no real explanation about the timing. I don't know if, obviously, no one could have predicted 3 years ago that we were going to be here now. But now I see that there's so many waivers that are happening as far as people being able to have extra testing time, if their number is expiring, things of that nature. So we're just hoping that there can be some type of waiver, although this was already planned, if this would also be an item that would fall under those waivers come January, if there's something that we can actually, I don't know, maybe an application that we can file, if we can submit our W-2s to actually qualify for a waiver, a fee increase waiver or something of that nature, that would really help us. Because as you know, there's so many things that are happening within all of our communities, not just people of color. And we really want to stay in this field. We see the value in it. And so if you can just take that into consideration moving forward, we would really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your comment, Ms. Robinson.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess that, I guess I want to thank you for expressing the concern. And I want to just also say that, this is a very, very difficult time, for everyone. And I totally understand, how hard it is. And talking about the worst timing. And so, so your concern is very well received. We feel the pain, and it's really, really hard. And so, so I want to let you know that this is not going unnoticed. We're not like, just turn off, our emotions and not feeling, the pain of the public. So I want to let you know that we definitely receive your message.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So Lisa, or Kim, anybody else?
I don't see anyone else.
Okay.
So, no other hands raised. So I think you can proceed to the next agenda item.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So our next agenda item is the future agenda items. And so board members, if you have any possible suggestion for the future agenda items, you can raise your hand and let me know. Nope, seeing none. So no Max, right? Deborah, no. And Wendy, no. Okay. So, so Kim, do we invite the public to make comments too? Okay.
Public
So
can
Lisa-
suggest future agenda. They can request a.
Okay, perfect. So Lisa, do we see any raised hand for the public, for the comment, for the,
Future agenda items?
Yes.
No. Oh, yes, Mary Elizabeth. Go ahead.
Yes, good morning.
Hi.
Will it be possible to bring up a topic in regarding people that have decided to start their career at a later age, such as maybe after 50 years old, and finding out that testing has not been the greatest experience myself that I can say that I've had, mainly because now that I am on my 60s, I'm finding myself that it's like, okay, I'm running out of time here and I am not passing my test. What can the board recommend in such a situation? Yes, I do have special accommodations. The anxiety, I thought I had it under control, but my test scores is showing differently. It's been really challenging, and as a therapist, I know I am a good therapist, and I am doing my job the way it is I was trained to do. Plus also it is my passion. So I don't know if there's something that the board can come up with or recommend in the future for something like that. I'm sure there's people out there that for different reasons they start their career at a later stage in their life for whatever reasons. So that's something that I would like to bring up to the table.
Thank you very much, Miss Mary Elizabeth. So anything else? Anybody, Lisa, anybody raise their hand? And
I do not see any other hands raised.
No other?
No.
Okay, perfect. So, so at this point, I think we conclude. Oh, Kim, go ahead.
We need to give those on the phone an opportunity because we may not hear from them. So
yes.
The phone number ending in 2200, did you wish to suggest a topic for a future agenda? Okay. Hearing none. Hello?
She's waiting on Kaiser. She's doing the Kaiser thing.
Okay, that's right. Okay. Anyone?
There is a 3381.
3381. And please unmute your phone if you wish to make a comment. Okay, moving forward. Ending in 3387. Please unmute your phone if you'd like to make a comment. All righty, hearing none or seeing nobody else. All right, I would say, Christina, you're good to go. We can move forward with the rest of the agenda.
Thank you very much. So at this point, I would like to encourage, the public, members of the public, if you can turn off your audio and your video, that would really be helpful, so we're not crowding, the video screen. So thank you very, very much. So our next agenda item is our consent calendar, and that's the approval of the February 7th, 2020 committee meeting minutes. So let's go with the board members. Any comment? Christina, go ahead.
I already have one correction.
Okay.
On the very last line, on the very last page, at the adjournment, I'm pretty sure we did not adjourn at 11:53 p.m. So I will amend that to a.m.
Oh. Well, in that case, that would probably be the longest meeting in the history forever.
Sure is.
Thank you so much for, correcting and then catching that. So any other amendments that we need to make?
Christina, I wasn't there at the meeting, so I will have to abstain on the vote. I just wanted to let you know that.
Okay, I'll still call your name in the roll call and just mention.
Right. Yeah.
You don't have to abstain.
No, Sabina? Right.
You don't have to abstain.
Okay, I did read it, of course. but
Yeah,
I'll
and
be
you rely on
participating.
you can rely on your fellow committee members for the accuracy of the actual content.
Okay, perfect then.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank
Sabina,
you.
that was a question for me as well, because I wasn't a member of the committee then. So am I allowed to still vote on the minutes? Okay.
So our role is clear. What we can do is clear. Wonderful. So now for the board members, any comments? Nope. Very good. Any for the public? Any comments? No. Lisa?
Sorry, no hands raised. Do you want me to check the phone numbers also?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we have one ending with 3381. Do you have any comments? If so, unmute. No. And another number ends with 3387. Do you have any comments? And nope, they are not unmuting, so there are none.
Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome.
Yes. So thank you, Lisa. So I think at this point, let's can I have a motion? I'll move. I'll move to accept the February 7, 2020 committee meeting minutes with amendments. I need a second.
I'll
Deborah, second. So any other discussion? No. So Lisa, no discussion from the public also?
Let me see. No hands raised. And so again, the two phone numbers I have is 3381. Do you have any comments? And 3387. Nope. No
Okay.
comment.
Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome.
Thank you. So I think we're ready for the roll call.
Okay, Deborah Brown,
Yes.
Max Disposti,
Yes.
Wendy Strack,
Yes.
Christina Wong.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. So here's the really fun discussion items. So when we proceed to the discussion and possible recommendation regarding proposed technical amendments to all the codes, I think we will have Roseanne to refer to the packet. And since it's such a big, long packet, I guess that what we're going to do is to have Roseanne to talk about each section, each of the amendments, and we're going to stop and invite board members and the public to comment, and then we will vote for each one of them. Yeah. Any question, Kim? I see you, thinking.
I was just wondering if we should bring that up on the screen at the same time we discuss it.
We love that.
Okay, let me do that.
Yeah. So yeah, we can do, definitely, do the screen share.
Okay.
And so, so for the public, who are viewing, for the Zoom, there is a function that you can certainly, expand it, enlarge it, so that you can see it clearer, so that we can all, refer to the same material together. So thank you very much. And so Roseanne, I'm I hope you're getting ready.
I am ready. So let's go ahead and get started. This is a big agenda item. And the reason that it's so much bigger than usual is because we had kind of an unusual year with legislation last year. So every year the board reviews our statutes for technical cleanup or a little bit more substantive amendments that might need some tweaks or changes or clarifications. And so last year, the 2020 legislative session was unconventional because of COVID-19. It was really cut short. They really had to pare down the bills and the topics that they considered. And so a lot of things got cut. And our omnibus bill was one of them. Also, our sunset bill did not proceed. So those two bills we're planning on running next year. The omnibus bill we're planning on running, the sunset bill, the Senate Business and Professions Committee is planning on running. And both of those bills represent an opportunity to make some more minor technical cleanup changes, either in the Omni bill if it's very minor, or if it's a little bit more substantive but still minor, possibly in the sunset bill. So that's what you're seeing with the large number of topics that are in this bill today. We're trying to do some cleanup and some clarification in areas where staff or stakeholders have asked. So the amendments fall into kind of 4 categories. We have some new suggestions that were brought to me that have not yet been considered or approved by the board. We also have some amendments that were going to be cleanup in the fee bill. It's nothing to do with increasing fees, but there was some cleanup. There was some obsolete language about continuing education provider fees and things like that we were proposing deleting in that bill. And because only the essential elements of that bill were allowed to run, we still have some cleanup to do, so that our law is as clear as possible. We also have some amendments that were approved through the omnibus bill last year by the board. And then finally, we had some amendments that we were proposing last year for consistency with AB 2138 regulation. So I'm going to go through one by one, like Christina said, and then we'll stop after each one to take questions and comments. So the first item for today is consideration of amending Business and Professions Code section 2290.5 for associates in telehealth. And we're actually going to be starting a telehealth committee in January, but this is a more minor sort of cleanup related change that a stakeholder brought to me. So I thought that it would be appropriate to consider from the omnibus bill next year. And so current law for telehealth specifies that MFT associates and trainees are included in the definition of a healthcare provider who can provide services via telehealth. We also have a section in more deeper in the Business and Professions Code, it's harder to find, that says that technically licensees, when the law refers to licensees, it also includes registrants. That's not as obvious to most people. They wouldn't know where to look for that if they're looking about telehealth. So where telehealth Business and Professions Code defines a healthcare provider as anyone licensed under the Business and Professions Code, and that also includes all registrants. It's implied, but it's not stated. So when Business and Professions Code 2290.5 was amended several years back, the LMFT associations preferred for clarity that their associates and trainees be specifically listed as being permitted to do telehealth in that section. It's not necessarily needed for associates, trainees, it's a little bit more questionable, but it just adds some greater clarity. However, the PCC and ASW associates were not included on this list. At the time, it wasn't thought that it was a problem. They're technically covered under 23.8. It's a subtle distinction. However, we get, and the associations apparently also get the question occasionally, can the associates do telehealth? And the answer is that they can, but it's not very clear from looking at that section. So what we're proposing today is to include associate clinical social workers and associate professional clinical counselors in that definition. We're not proposing to include
monitoring a meeting. What's up?
Social work interns or trainees, but we're because that's something that the telehealth committee needs to go in a little bit more depth about. But for now, it's pretty clear that associates can already do it. If you really look at the law, we'd like to make it a little bit more clear up front. So that's the proposal for discussion for today.
Thank you so much, Roseanne. So basically, it's really just to include the language of, to clarify the language that to include, the associate, the ASW, and then the APCC, in the definition of the healthcare provider.
Yes.
Very straightforward. And so I'm going to refer to the board members. Any comments? No? Okay. So we're going to go to the public. Lisa, do we see any public comments?
Yes, Kenneth Edwards has his hand up.
Okay.
Good morning, everybody. Kenneth Edwards from the California Association for Licensed Professional Clinical Counselors. Thank you for this discussion item. We like to be written in as much as possible as on par with the other professions. And this helps us further our mission of being able to argue with some of these organizations that say that APCCs cannot do something because it's not written. So I believe that this will help a lot. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kenneth. And I see Rebecca.
Rebecca Gonzalez, National Association of Social Workers, California Chapter. We also agree with the recommendation on this item.
Very good. And Miss Jen Ellie.
Hi, good morning. Jennifer Alley with the California Association of Marriage and Family Therapists. I completely agree that the statute should be updated and more consistent. We're just kind of concerned about the time frame and want to make sure that the change can happen in the efforts of the board next year, simply because it's already October. The Telehealth Policy Committee meets in January. I'm not sure just process-wise how quickly any recommendations by that committee would be sent to the board and approved, and would they actually be able to be included in legislation next year. So we're really just more concerned about the timing and ensuring that it can happen. So thank you for allowing me to speak today.
So Kim, would you like to speak about that, about the time frame?
I'm going to punt to Roseanne, our legislative manager.
Yes.
Roseanne, go ahead.
So to definitely get your concern, Jen, this is more of a cleanup. The law already implies this particular thing. So this particular piece of, although it has to do with telehealth, it's something that's really already in law. It's just a clarification. So this would be appropriate for the omnibus bill. Whereas, like I said, with the discussion on the ASW, the clinical social worker interns and PCC trainees, it's a little bit more, that's not really an omnibus bill item because it's not really clear in law that it can already be done. So it's not just simple clarification, which is why we're not pursuing that at that time. This would be pursued in either the omnibus bill, probably the omnibus bill, possibly the sunset bill, because it's a minor technical change, where the other bigger changes related to 2290.5 would be probably proposed to be following year, not this coming January, in a separate bill that's doing some more substantive changes.
Right. So Miss Alley, I hope this answer some of the question that you have about the time frame. Yeah, thank you so much. Any other comments, public comments? Lisa?
Okay, how about phone number that ends with 3381? Do you have any comments? And phone number that ends with 3387. No, and nobody has their hands raised, and I'm assuming, oh wait, K-Rob does. Go ahead,
All
K-Rob.
right.
Hi, sorry. I just wanted to ask, are any of the amendments or the clarifications, are they also going to include, the approved platforms? Because I know currently right now during the pandemic, there are HIPAA waivers that have actually included a lot of different platforms during this time. So I wanted to know, in that January meeting, will they also be clarifying the different platforms that we can utilize? Because we're not sure if that's going to go back to only HIPAA compliant once January hits, or if moving forward, even after the pandemic, if those approved platforms will still be allowed. Thank you.
Good question. And so it's kind of related to the Telehealth Committee. And so Kim, maybe you want to chime in?
Yes, we have some plans, and I'm going to turn it back over to Roseanne because she's the one heading up that committee.
Yes, thank you,
It's
Rosa.
definitely something we can talk at the Telehealth Committee. In terms of HIPAA, that's a federal office that oversees HIPAA, and you're correct that they have said that there's certain platforms that can be used right now during the pandemic to be HIPAA compliant. HIPAA compliance is something totally different from what the board, the federal office, Health and Human Services, sets that. So if they decide in January or whenever the pandemic ends that those platforms are no longer acceptable, then in terms of HIPAA, they'll no longer be acceptable. But in terms of the board and platforms that can be recommended for telehealth, we can definitely have that discussion.
Absolutely. The Telehealth Committee is going to be a pretty interesting one because we will be, kind of like advancing what we have already have. So there are different agenda items that is really pertinent to the current practice. So I know I'm kind of like on the tangent, but just want to make sure that, all those committees are open to the public, and, you all are more than welcome to participate. And we do listen. So thank you very much, Ms. Robinson. So any other public comments? Lisa?
At this point, no, I do not see any others. The 2200 number, you're standing by for the Kaiser discussion, correct? I think so.
Correct.
Lisa.
Okay. All right, then. No, and I apologize for my dog.
We were wondering whose dog. Yeah.
That was mine, sorry.
No problem. Thank you so much, Lisa.
You're welcome.
Max, you want to say something?
No, I just was saying for practicality, actually there is a way how to raise the hand on the phone so that every time we don't have to go through this. I mean, I don't, in case there are more phones, listening, but under the chat area, there are the 3 dots on the phone as well, where there is a feature where you can talk or raise hand as well. Just a quick heads up in case the people that are listening, they don't know. So it's much easier perhaps that way because there is a feature on the phone to do so.
Thank you so much. That would definitely save a lot of our, Lisa's effort. Yeah, thank you so much. So I guess I need a motion. So I will move. Go ahead, Max, you move.
I'll make a motion to approve. I don't know if there are no substantial changes, Roseanne. So I'll just make a motion to approve as stated. Am I right?
Correct.
Okay.
I'll second.
Wendy second. So any other discussion? Board members, public? Okay.
I see no hands.
No hands. Good. So I think we're ready to vote.
Deborah Brown,
Yes.
Max Disposti,
Yes.
Wendy Strack,
Yes.
Christina Wong,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you so much, Roseanne.
All right, moving on to item 2, regarding fictitious business names. So 3 of our 4 practice acts for LMFT, LCSW, and Lpcc contain provisions prohibiting utilization of a false, misleading, or deceptive fictitious business name. And we had a very small technical comment that was made. I believe it was staff sending out a letter and noticing that the exact wording of the law is slightly different based on the license types. Most of the statutes that state this law say that the law pertaining to the prohibiting the use of a fictitious business name, they prohibit any name that is false, misleading, or deceptive. However, for the one LMFT and one LCSW statute, it's slightly different. It says it's a fictitious name which is false, misleading, or deceptive is prohibited. So this is obviously just a very minor change. It does make a difference though when we're sending out letters and trying to quote the law. So that's why it got flagged as a problem most likely. Also in regards to this statute, LEP statute doesn't contain it at all. It's just not there. It's never been an issue where it's needed, but we've never had an enforcement issue where it's needed, but for consistency, it does make sense to add the language to LEP law as well. So we're proposing to add a section to do so.
Thank you, Roseanne. So these are really technical change, basically changing one word and then add the LEP, in the, to include them. So board members, any comments? No? Okay, Lisa, any public comments?
At this time, I see no public comments.
Awesome. So sounds like we're ready to move it. So I need a motion. So I'll move to accept the this proposal.
I'll
Any
second.
Deborah, second. Thank you so much. Any other discussion? None from the board members and the public. Lisa?
None from the public at the moment.
Thank you very much. I think we're ready. Christina?
Deborah Brown,
Yes.
Max Disposti,
Yes.
Wendy Strack,
Yes.
Christina Wong.
Yes, thank
Motion
you.
carries.
Thank you so much. I think my caffeine is kicking in, so I'm like over talking people, and my apology.
No problem.
So let's move on to the next one, Roseanne.
All right, item number 3, clarification of frequency of renewal fees. So we want to make a clarification because it's not, there's some spots that talk about the frequency of renewal fees. They don't say how often, so you kind of have to go through and dig in the law to find out where it says that. A licensee needs to renew an unexpired license every 2 years. Associates renew every year. So there's a few places in statute that we'd like to state that. Also with LEP statute, because that's a very simple, small statute, it was put in place a long time ago. It specifies LEP licenses must renew a license, but it doesn't say, it just says a renewal fee that must be paid. It does not specify a 2-year renewal fee. So we want to make some clarifications stating that associate registrations are renewed annually and licensees are renewed every 2 years. It's not a change in what we're doing. It's just reiterating in various places so it's super clear when that happens.
Thank you so much, Roseanne. So this is already in practice. It's just not in the language. So board members, any comments? No? This is actually really important. Now we know that it's every 2 years. We cannot change that. So wonderful. Lisa, any public comments?
I see no public comments at this time.
Thank you so much, Lisa. So I guess that seeing none, then we can move on to, we can move it. I need a motion. Wendy? So what will be your motion?
Oh, to approve the recommendation.
Awesome. And I'll second it. So any other discussion, board members? No? Lisa, any public?
No public comments.
Thank you. So we're ready to vote. Christina? You're muted. Christina Kitamura?
All right, my mouse doesn't work so well. Sorry. Deborah Brown,
Yes.
Max Disposti,
Yes.
Wendy Strack,
Yes.
Christina Wong.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank
And can I make a suggestion for those motions that are going to be the same without any changes? Perhaps to direct staff to bring to the board for consideration as a legislative proposal. That would be a good motion. Yes, Roseanne?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So Sabina, since you show up, should we just, on record, should we just state what Christina said, or can we just, use the same motion?
I think she's actually saying the same thing.
Okay.
I think, yeah. So all of our recommendations today are going to be recommendations to the board to pursue this language as a legislative proposal.
So, okay.
So yes, so you can absolutely use that language. Your motions before are acceptable as well. If you want to make them uniform, like Christina's suggesting, you can absolutely do that as well.
Okay. So we'll monkey with it. So.
And Christina or I, or even Roseanne can provide some language if you need it for clarification.
Okay. So we'll refer back to Christina. Okay. So Christina.
No, except for but not on the hard ones. That's those two.
I'll do those.
You just got to make the.
This is an easy one.
Minutes for the meeting, so it'd be easier for her.
Yeah, that would be good. Thank you so much. Well, thanks for the reminder. Yeah, it's important that we're clear on, what motions that we're working on. So thank you so much. Roseanne, please.
Yes, moving on to item number 4. This is a little bit of a bigger topic. And this is an example of one where if it's too technical to be in the omnibus bill, which it might be, then we might ask to put it in the sunset bill or if there's another bill available. But we're proposing to add a section to require email addresses for applicants, registrants, and licensees. Several other boards do this already, a medical board, dental board, psychology board. They've all added over the years some language requiring this if the applicant has or the licensee has an email address. We believe it would be useful, especially we have a new test vendor. We've had a new test vendor for about the past year. They contact applicants about their status in the exam process via email. So it's very important for us to have an email address for our applicants, especially. It would also allow staff to communicate via email about law changes to most of our licensees and registrants, rather than just hope that they sign up for the listserv or follow us on our social media pages. That way everybody would get that information. And so we were proposing some language that's shown in Business and Professions Code 4990.07. And it would require everybody that has an email address to provide it and to keep it updated with us. The language also states that the board is prohibited from sharing that information with the public. So it's not something we would share. It would just be something that we have for internal communication with them. So I'll open up for discussion.
Yes, thank you so much, Roseanne. So very simple. Again, required to add the email and then the not sharing to the public. So board members, question.
I just have a question of clarification. I mean, it's really clear, but so because I know right now the collection of emails is just voluntarily, right? I mean, it's not a mandatory step. So this will make it mandatory every time that there is okay.
If they have one, yes. If
well,
they,
of course, right.
Yeah, if they don't have one, then we're not going to force them to get one. But if they have one, they would share it.
Yes. Yep. So any other board members, any other comments? Okay, so I'm going to go to public. Public comments.
I see no public comments at this time.
Thank you so much, Lisa. So in that sense, we can have, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve as stated. Yeah.
So your motion will be, Christina, would you like to repeat that one?
Sorry.
To direct staff to bring to the board for consideration as a legislative proposal.
Exactly like she said.
I'll second it. Awesome. So any other discussion from the board members? No. Lisa?
James Maddox has his hand up.
Okay. So go ahead.
James.
Oh, terrific. Thank you. Not to be a nitpicker, but on the last sentence, it says, board staff believes such a requirement would be useful as will. Did they mean as well, or is there something nefarious going on there?
So which page that you are referring to?
Version page 4. Background, it's under background, several DCA board members, yada, 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 and licenses provide the board with a current email address if they have one, period. Board staff believes such a requirement would be useful as will.
It's a typo. I apologize for that.
Yeah, okay.
It's supposed to be as well. Spell checker didn't get that one.
Yes, right. Well, thank you so much for pointing this out. So gladly, this is a recommendation. So, it's not in the, in our regulation. So that's fine. Thank you so much, Ms. Maddox. Mr. Maddox, yes. Any other comments, public comments? Lisa?
No, there are not.
Very good. So I think we're ready to vote. Christina?
Deborah Brown?
Yes.
Max Disposti?
Yes.
Wendy Strack?
Yes.
Christina Wong?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Let's see. Let's move on to the next agenda item, and then maybe we can take a very quick 5 minutes break. Would that work for everybody? Okay. Roseanne, take it away.
All right. Item number 5. This is another bigger one that might not go in the omnibus, but might go in the sunset or a different bill. And that's for law waivers during the state of emergency. This is something that, of course, came to our attention because of COVID. During the state of the emergency, the governor issued an executive order that allows the director of DCA to waive any statutory or regulatory requirements with regard to a professional license issued to Division 2 of the Business and Professions Code, which is the division of the Business and Professions Code that the board falls under. The director approved several waivers for our board due to COVID-19. However, the request for these waivers had to clear several levels of review at the department, and sometimes it was time consuming. They were very receptive to our waivers and our concerns. It just took some time. And so, and a lot of times the reviewers were not as familiar with the board's laws as the reviewers are not as familiar with the board's licensing laws as board staff, the board members, the board's attorney. So we realized that pharmacy board has an existing provision in its laws already that allow it to waive provisions of its statutes and regulations during a declared federal, state, or local emergency if the waiver will aid or public protection or patient care. That provision's been in pharmacy board's law since 2003 when it was granted as part of their sunset bill. So since they have it and it seems to have worked for them, we would like to propose having that as well. So we're proposing to add a new section 4990.27 to the board's administrative sections of the Business and Professions Code, allowing us to do this.
Thank you so much, Roseanne. So I do have a question for clarification. So this actually will add to the authority of the executive officer of the BBS board, to declare, to just basically, add that to, to the authority, right?
Yeah. What it would do is it would give us the ability to convene a meeting and consider waivers and issue them on our own.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Right.
Got it.
I mean, yeah. So no, we couldn't issue a waiver without consent of the full board. But rather than going through the process that we did, which was through legal, through DCA, through agency, through, to all the way up, and waiting sometimes months, as some of our constituents had to wait for a waiver. We could get waivers issued more efficiently and effectively to respond to some of the strong concerns that our stakeholders had. So that's what we would do.
So I get confused because the governor can just issue the waiver without, the board approval. And yet for us, then the executive officer can convene the meeting. So I think that's the difference.
Right. That's the difference. Rather than waiting 2 or 3 months, let's say, I mean, it took us quite a while to get the exam waiver. And that was a strong concern for a lot of our candidates. There was never any doubt that we would likely get the waiver. It's just the timing of it all, because everybody was going through the pipeline at the same time. Whereas, if you look at some of the efforts that pharmacy was able to do, they got some of their waivers in immediately. So, and this would only be done under a declared state of an emergency, period.
Right. Thank you. Wendy?
Just a quick clarification from Kim. Did we have any waivers that were not approved during that time?
None that we requested. I mean, there were some waivers that outside entities proposed, but when we took a look at the law and considered, the implications, they were not feasible for us to recommend approval. Primarily the ones that we focused on were, ways to keep everybody working, ways to keep everybody's exam eligibility intact, and trying to make it so folks could just get through the process and allow retired individuals to come back and start practicing immediately and deliver services. So, more public protection and candidate protection.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you very much. So board members, any other comments? Okay, very good. And I see Ms. Aronson. So you're waving. All right, go ahead.
I'm wondering, are there any waivers currently in the pipeline that can get approved by the board more quickly once this is established?
Oh, well, this would be established through legislation, and that process takes at least a year. So if we all agree to it, the board members bless it, we find an, we put it in the bill, it goes through the next legislative cycle. Yeah, we're a year out. So at the very earliest, if we were very successful in this, it would be January 1st, 2022. We could do it.
God willing, it's not an emergency by then.
Oh, God, please. Yes.
Yes, yes. Everything takes very, very long, to really, make it into regulations. So it does take time. Yes.
It does.
Thank you so much, Ms. Aronson. Rebecca?
Rebecca Gonzalez, NASW. This would be incredibly helpful, so we concur.
Yes, thank you. And Ms. Alley?
Good morning, Jennifer Alley with CAMP. I think it would also be helpful. And I just wonder, with the state of emergency declaration, would it be limited to statewide, or would it be for like areas impacted by fire? So if we had.
Oh.
The wording of the law is a state, local, or federal emergency.
Right. Right.
So if there is one of those declared emergency in the law, in another section of the law actually defines what those emergencies can consist of. So it could be any.
Yeah. So good question, because I'm just really thinking that even a couple years ago, the campfire close by my area, it really, has created a lot of the obstacles for the practitioners, because they lost everything, literally. And so, yeah, so this will be, very, very helpful, to push forward any of these waiver, in a very timely manner. So very good. Okay, any other public comments? Lisa?
Yes, Kiona Robinson.
Hi again. Quick question. Would this expedited process eliminate the ability for the public to give feedback or also have any say in these waivers, because you guys would be able to do it quickly?
No. To answer your question, the meetings that we would hold would be in public, just like we're meeting now. And there would be opportunity for public comment to, weigh in on the potential waiver.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
And we also have Kyle Jackson.
Mr. Jackson, you're on.
Hello. If I'm understanding it correctly, I'm hearing that during a time of emergency, there's a lot of consideration to a waiver of a license requirement for people to provide counseling services. And I haven't heard anyone today mention patients. I haven't heard anyone, mention, will the patients be served by someone who has not gone through the same steps? And I understand there's a need to get counselors back to work, but there's a need to make sure that patients who are going through the same challenges are getting quality counselors. And that's what I'm concerned about.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I hear your concern, Mr. Jackson, and absolutely, if you look to the waivers that on our website that have been approved, none of them waive the statutory requirements to become a licensee or a registrant. All the education and all the training remains intact. Some of the waivers that we approved were to allow folks extend their eligibility to take a test, because by law there's a notification date and a due date to take the test. Obviously, some of the candidates couldn't get into the test site because the test site was closed. So you don't want to adversely impact those. So those are the types of considerations that we sought waivers for. It's not, we've never, nor do I believe this board would ever be supportive of removing an educational or a training or an exam requirement to allow people in to practice with the public without demonstrating their minimum competency to do so.
Thank you very much.
And so, Mr. Jackson, I also want to assure you that, the board's mission really is about, protecting the consumer, and we want to, accomplish the highest quality for mental health services, for the consumers. So, so the action that we take, we bear the consumers in mind. So thank you so much for bringing this up. Yes, thank you. So any other comments, Lisa?
No, I do not see any other comments at this time.
Awesome. So we're ready for a motion. I'll move. And
Okay.
Christina, what is can you say the language? Christina, you're muted.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
To direct staff to bring to the board for consideration as a legislative proposal.
That's my motion.
I'll second.
And Max second. And any other discussion? Okay, Lisa, any public comments?
No, ma'am.
Awesome. We're ready to vote. Christina?
Deborah Brown,
Yes.
Max Disposti,
Yes.
Wendy Strack,
Yes.
Christina Wong.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Yes. So let's take our very first 5 minutes break. So the time now is 10:07. Let's resume on at 10:12 a.m. sharply. Thank you.
Did you say?
Are we ready to start, Lisa, for Cesar? Or are we already automatically on? Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Cesar. So let's resume our Policy and Advocacy Committee meeting. The time now is 10:14. And Roseanne, please take it away.
Okay, item number 6, correction of a maximum fee amount. We had a typo in our fee bill where we didn't double a fee correctly. This does not affect the recent fee increase. It's something that it will affect down the road many, many years from now, when the board has to consider whether to run regulations or legislation to increase fees. Again, we're not talking anytime in the near future. But when we did our fee increase bill, the time of the fee increase, a base fee was determined, which is what it's going to be charged now. And then whenever DCA boards run fee increases, they always set a base amount, which is what we're charging to begin with, and then a maximum fee amount. And the maximum fee amount represents the maximum amount of fee can be reached and increased in the future via regulations. So instead of running legislation, which is usually a lengthier process, the board can run regulations to increase fees if it's not at its fee max. Regulations is the same process. There's still public input. Still, any increases still have to go to the board for public participation. It's just that it's a different process that doesn't go through the legislative process. It goes through the regulation. And in the regulation process, also, there's still the opportunity to submit public comment. It's just that most of the time regulations is a different process than utilizing the legislature every time needs to increase fees. So it's believed that maximum fee amounts will not be needed for many years, but an error was discovered in the calculation of the maximum fee just for the LCSW application for licensure. Across all license types, the current base fee was established at $250, and to determine the maximum fee to give the board enough room years and years from now to have some room to up fees, it should have been doubled to 500. That's to set the ceiling. That was done for all of the license types except for that specific LCSW fee. It was not doubled, and instead it was set at 400, which is $100 less than what it should have been. Increasing this lower maximum fee to 500 would have no effect on current LCSW applications for the licensure fee, which is currently established and would stay at $250. However, having the maximum fee ceiling set too low by error could have an effect a number of years down the road if the application fees for the other license types are set at 500 and LCSW application fees can only be raised to 400. This would create an unequal fee across the license types and it could require the board to pursue legislation in the future when otherwise it would pursue regulations. So it's a technical error. We don't foresee any time in the near future needing this, but 10, 20 years down the road, you never know. So we're proposing to correct the error to have the LCSW maximum application fee be set at $500 instead of $400, consistent with what it is in the new law for the other license types.
Thank you, Roseanne. So, so let me just reiterate, this is not about fee increase. This is about correcting the error of the ceiling of the maximum that's, the ceiling of the fee and make it consistent. So let me just make it very clear so that, the public is not being alarmed. So any comments from the board members? No, seeing none. Lisa.
I do not see any hands raised from the public.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I know it's a very sensitive subject, so I just want to make sure that, that we're clear.
I agree.
Awesome. So I think we can proceed to have, we can entertain a motion now.
I'll move.
Deborah.
I'll move. Christina?
Christina?
Yes, I'm going to take this motion that Roseanne crafted on her memo, which is to direct staff to make any discussed changes and non-substantive changes and bring to the board for consideration as a legislative proposal.
That's my motion.
Thank you.
I'll second it. So Deborah and Christina. So any other comments from the board? Seeing none. Public, Lisa.
None from the public.
Awesome. So I think we're ready to roll.
Deborah Brown.
Yes.
Max Disposky.
Yes.
Wendy Strack.
Yes.
Deborah Brown. Sorry, Christina Wong. I wanted 2 votes from you.
I know, I say yes, and Deborah can have my vote too. Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you so much. So we're moving along. So Roseanne?
Item number 7, and I do need to make a correction where it says add BPC sections 4996.61 and 4999.62. Instead of 4999.62, it should say 4996.62. Those are both in LCSW law. So right now, LMFT, LEP, and Lpcc statute all contain sections that outline the conditions for renewing a suspended license and also for reinstating a revoked license. However, LCSW law, which has historically been structured differently because it was not modeled after LMFT like Lpcc was, is structured differently. LCSW law is missing those sections. In addition, the LEP law contains the sections, but they're worded slightly differently than the statute for LMFTs and Lpccs. So in the interest of being uniform and having the same outlined statute for all of our license types, we would like to add 2 sections to the LCSW law regarding the renewal of a suspended license and reinstatement of a revoked license. So the process is clearly stated in law for LCSWs and consistent with our other 2 license types, and then amend the sections in LEP law so that the wording is consistent with all of the other board's license types. So that's the proposal.
Thank you so much, Roseanne. So it's cleaning up the language, making sure that, across all 4 license type are consistent. Awesome. Yes, Christina.
Roseanne, can you give me those code corrections again, section corrections?
Instead of on item 7, the first line where it says 4999.62, it should say 4996.62 instead.
499.6.62?
It should say 4996.62.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, got it. So that would be the, that should be included, in the amendments for the board vote, so that,
Yeah.
For this motion. Yeah.
That would be just adding a new BMP code section anyway. So who knows what might happen later? We might end up with another number from whoever, we'll end up later with an author or whatever.
The Ledge Council could change it on us.
Right.
Well, usually they don't.
Okay, perfect. So we don't even have to worry about that in the motion. Perfect. Okay, board members, comments? Nope. Great. Lisa, public.
There are currently none from the public.
Yes, thank you, Lisa. So I guess that we are moving along for the motion. I'll make the motion. Christina, what will be the motion?
Yes. To direct staff to make any discussed changes and any non-substantive changes and bring to the board for consideration as a legislative proposal.
Yes, that's my motion. Max, you want a second?
Yes.
Okay, so it's be Christina and Max. Any other comments? Nope, seeing none. Lisa?
None from the public.
Yes, so let's go for the roll call.
Deborah Brown,
Yes.
Max Disposti,
Yes.
Wendy Strack,
Yes.
Christina Wong.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Yay. So Chris, see, I do the same thing now. I'm calling Christina. All right, Roseanne, please take it away.
Okay, so this was a kind of a last minute ad that we weren't planning on doing. So I'm gonna have to explain this a little bit, what was happening. We had a bill run this year. It was SB 855 that was signed by the governor. And this bill expands California's 1999 Mental Health Parity Act. It requires health plans and insurers that provide hospital, medical, surgical coverage to cover all medically necessary treatment of mental health and other substance use disorders under the same terms and conditions as other medical conditions. So the governor signed it. It contains a definition of a healthcare provider in two of its sections, the sections that are noted above. Separate from its position, the board took a support position on this bill, but separate from its position, the board had ultimately decided to request that all associates be added to the definition of healthcare provider, and that happened. But they also request that trainees either be removed or clarified that they are under supervision of a licensed person. And the exact language to this can be found under this item starting on page 65. You can see, let's see, about halfway down the page on page 65, there's an item number 4 that says, for purposes of this section, healthcare provider means any of the following. And then it starts to list what the healthcare provider is. So we were successful in getting associate marriage and family therapists in there. We were successful in getting associate clinical social workers and associate professional clinical counselors in there. But we had also had them add trainees at the beginning. And then the board discussed a little further and decided that they wanted to take it out. So we tried to get the request at the author's office to do this, and they did put in a good faith effort. However, they were unable to do this. They just ran out of time. So we're not able to do that. They suggested that we pursue the amendments to remove trainees as part of the Health Committee's omnibus bill this year. So the way that I drafted the language, that you might want to do some discussion still, the way that I've drafted it, the proposal is that we're not saying anything about ASW interns, because NASW asked that interns not be included. So those are not included. They're not in this discussion at all. The discussion is with the marriage and family therapist trainees and the professional clinical counselor trainees. What I've proposed and what we need to discuss is I've proposed taking professional clinical counselor trainees out because they do not count pre-degree hours. So they are not necessarily required to be supervised by a licensed person who meets the board supervision requirements. However, we have proposed leaving marriage and family therapist trainees in and stating that the trainees must be performing activities and services as part of their supervised course of study as outlined in section 4980.42, which is the section of their law governing trainees. So want to make sure that this is still a proposal you want to pursue and whether you agree with what I've proposed here. So I will open it up to discussion.
All right. So board members, any question for Roseanne? You know, the inclusion and the deletion. No. Okay. So Lisa, public.
No, the public does not have a comment at this time.
Awesome. So it looks like Roseanne, this is good to go.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. James Maddox has raised his hand.
All right. Oh, Mr. Maddox.
I'm new. Why are ASWs being excluded?
ASWs are not being excluded. All associates are included, but the trainees who are still in school, the social workers have what they call them. They don't call them trainees. They call them social work interns. That's somebody that's still in their master's degree program. And as policy, they typically request that they not be included in any of the laws because they are not yet under the jurisdiction of the board. They're only under the jurisdiction of their school.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you for asking that question. And I think this is exactly the distinction between, the three different mental health professionals and how they run their education program. So good point. Any other public comments?
Yes, Jen has one.
Hi, Jen. You're muted.
You'd think I'd have this down. Jennifer Alley with CAMP. I just want to thank the board and this committee for their consideration and their discussions. We did have lengthy multiple discussions last year about the trainees, and I think the approach clarifying that they're performing services under a trainee under the supervision of their school is a really good compromise, and we have no additional concerns other than I think this is a really good solution. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jen. So this is very evident, and we do listen to the stakeholders and then include their comments, in our legislative packet. So thank you so much, Jen. So any other public comments, Lisa?
No, we don't have any others.
Awesome. So at this point, I think we can entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Max, and the motion will be Christina, please.
To direct staff to make any discuss changes and any non-substantive changes and bring to the board for consideration as a legislative proposal.
Awesome. So Deborah and Wendy, you both have to fight.
It's fine. Deborah can have it. It's fine.
I'll give it to Wendy.
Okay, there you go.
So Wendy, so it's Max and Wendy. Any other discussion?
I would just like to say, and follow up with what you said, Christina, on that, how working with us and the staff, that we listen to the stakeholders and they're an integral part of how we process and do things. And I'd like to just say thank you to the staff because they're in constant contact with our stakeholders, making sure that everybody is working for the same goal and down the same path. So they often do not get thanked for all that work. And I really appreciate it.
We love when the stakeholder told us that, to thank us. I think this is really super awesome. And it's just very evident, again, the good work, for the board staff, and with the, with the stakeholders. So thank you all. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, public, Lisa?
None from the public, no.
Awesome, thank you. So we're ready to have a roll call. Christina?
Yes. Sorry, Deborah Brown?
Yes.
Max Disposki?
Yes.
Wendy Strack?
Yes.
Christina Wong?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Yes, thank you. So Roseanne, you're on for the next one again.
All right, so moving on, this is kind of a new category of amendments. I want to make sure everybody understands what's going on here. So the next three amendments that you're going to hear is cleanup that the board previously approved. Last year in November, we had written and decided the board had approved for running the fee increase bill. This was before COVID. It was already we were already pursuing the bill. But then COVID happened, and the department decided we had an author for the fee bill, and the department decided to put it in its bill because that was the best course of action. So they only took the most urgent clauses. So they didn't take some of the cleanup clauses because the legislature really was saying, hey, we only have so much time. We can't go through with everything. So we took the stuff that was not urgent out, and this is what was taken out. So we're proposing to put it in either the omnibus bill or the sunset bill this year. So I'm going to go through these items again. because we have a lot of new board members and we felt that it was most transparent to continue and bring it to the board again. So we are proposing, first, number one, authority to change continuing education provider fees. We are proposing to remove some obsolete language here. The board no longer has authority to approve continuing education providers. It was removed in 2015 when we had new continuing education regulations, and the regulations entrusted the review and approval of CE providers, coursework, and instructors to professional associations with expertise in that area. So there is no longer the need for the board to charge or have authority to charge continuing education provider fees. So we're requesting that that language be removed. This is just cleanup.
Yes. So this is totally just cleanup. So Roseanne, do you want to just proceed to, to cover all of them now, or do you want me to stop?
Let's stay consistent, if you don't mind, and stop, and just so that it's abundantly clear what we're doing in case there's any discussion on the other ones.
Okay, perfect. So, so this is about the deleting, the obsolete language for the continuing education provider fee. So not necessary to keep it there. Any board members think that we want to keep it? Question? Good. Public, Lisa.
No public comments.
Awesome. So I think we're good. So we can entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, Christina.
Awesome. Max, to approve, to deletion. So Christina, what will be the motion?
To direct staff to make any discussed changes and any non-substantive changes and bring to the board for consideration as a legislative proposal.
Perfect. I'll second that. So, or Wendy, if you want to, or Deborah, you want to second it? Okay, awesome. I'll second it. It's fine. So any other discussion?
None from the public.
Nope. Awesome. So we're ready to vote.
Deborah Brown?
Yes.
Max Disposti?
Yes.
Wendy Strack?
Yes.
Christina Wong?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you so much. So Roseanne, the next item, please.
Yes, renewal of expired license and reinstatement of licensure and involving the payment of accumulated fees. So the board does not charge accrued renewal or delinquency fees for expired or revoked licenses. However, the way that Lpcc and LEP statutes are written, they would permit this. We don't do that, and at the same time, LMFT and LCSW statute are not written to permit this. So we're consistent across all of our license types, and there's an inconsistency here. The inconsistency was actually highlighted with AB 544 in 2019. It's a bill that died, but it proposed prohibiting boards under DCA from requiring a person to pay accrued and unpaid renewal fees as a condition of reinstating a license. The bill proposed making the correction in the Lpcc and LEP language. AB 544 died for other reasons, but it did highlight the need to make this change in LEP and LPCC statutes so that language is worded consistently across all of the board's license types. So we're proposing to do that today.
Thank you, Roseanne. So this is another good clarification for the public, for the licensees. So any questions from the board member? Seeing none. Okay. And Lisa?
No, there are no public comments.
Awesome. So at this point, I think we can entertain a motion too. I'll move. Oh, and Wendy seconds, but let's hear the motion. Christina.
Direct staff to make any discussed changes and any non-substantive changes and bring to the board for consideration as a legislative proposal.
Awesome. So it will be Christina and Wendy. And so any other discussion? Okay, no. And Lisa?
None from the public.
Awesome. So we're ready to vote, Christina.
Deborah Brown?
Yes.
Max Disposti?
Yes.
Wendy Strack?
Yes.
Christina Wong?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Yay! Wonderful. So, and then it will be the last of the cleanup language.
Yes. So that has to do with LPCC startup funds. The LPCC program was established via SB 788 in 2009. To start up the program, the board needed funds ahead of time to hire staff, administrative costs. The section allowed the board originally to use its reserve fund to establish the LPCC program. Obviously, the LPCC program has been established for several years now. This section is no longer needed, so we're proposing to delete it.
Thank you, Roseanne. So this is another kind of no-brainer. The license type is already in, right? So any question, board members? No? Lisa?
Yes, Kenneth Edwards.
Ken, hi.
That's all I had to say.
So you want to say thank you?
Thank you. Oh, Kenneth Edwards, California Association for LPCCs. Thank you to the board. Thank you to everybody on this call this is just, we're moving into those next chapters and we really appreciate it. Thank you.
It's a good reminder of the history. Awesome. Thank you so much, Kenneth. So I guess that we can have a vote. No, not yet. We need a motion. Deborah? Deborah and Max, right? Okay.
So the motion is to direct staff to make any discussed changes and any non-substantive changes and bring to the board for consideration as a legislative proposal.
So we have a first, we have a second, and any other discussion? Seeing none. Lisa?
None from the public.
We're getting smoother. Yay. So Christina, let's vote.
Deborah Brown?
Yes.
Max Disposti?
Yes.
Wendy Strack?
Yes.
Christina Wong?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Yes, wonderful. And so we're going to move into the third section. Roseanne? Yeah.
Yes. So these are amendments approved by the board for the omnibus bill or sunset bill last year. The board has already seen them, but because we have a lot of new board members and just to sort of remind everybody what we were doing, we decided it was the best course of action to go over them again. So item number 1 has to do with professional corporations. There are 3 sections that LMFT, LCSW, and LPCC corporations. It states they're authorized to render professional services as long as they follow certain rules and employ certain professionals who are certain specified license holders. And then the section goes on to specify all of those license holders for a professional corporation. So the list is already in the corporations code where it sets out the law for professional corporations. Is a big long list of who can render professional services and what type of corporation. It's already in the corporations code. And the problem is that sometimes the legislature changes those professions in the corporations code. And so our list gets out of date. So currently our list is out of date. For example, midwives and naturopathic doctors are more recent additions that are not in our business and professions code. So we're just recommending striking the list of professions in the 3 specified sections. They're already listed in the corporations code, so it's duplicative. And so they're really not needed. We don't really need to maintain that list there. There's more of a risk of it being inaccurate.
So we basically, just clarify and clarify and also to delete the duplication so that it can be consistent. Yeah. So awesome. So board members, feedback, comments? Nope. Happy with the language? Wonderful. Public?
No public comments.
Roseanne, you're doing a really good job. Awesome. So I can entertain a motion. I will move and
I can second.
Yay. And Christina, and the motion is?
To direct staff to make any discussed changes and non-substantive changes and bring to the board for consideration as a legislative proposal.
Thank you very much. So any other discussion, board members? No? Public?
None from the public.
Awesome. So we're ready to vote.
Deborah Brown?
Deborah, you're muted.
Yes. Is that a yes, Deborah?
Yes.
Thank you. Max Disposti,
Yes.
Wendy Strack,
Yes.
Christina Wong.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. It looks like, we should be like having a little sign, right? Yes, no, make it easier. I'm just a good suggestion. So the next agenda item, right? It's about renumbering.
Super simple. We have a numbering error in section 4980.43.3. Subdivision C, the two criteria listed as 1 and 2 should instead be labeled as A and capital B. This is on page 21 in case you want to look at what we're doing here, but really we just need to renumber the contents of subdivision C in order to correct the error.
Yes, thank you, Roseanne. So not, any other feedback from the board members?
Oh.
Good. Nope. It's a very simple thing. All right. Public, Lisa?
None from the public.
Very good. So, motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Max and Wendy. Okay.
Sorry, Wendy.
And the motion is Christina?
Direct staff to make any discussed changes and any non-substantive changes and bring to the board for consideration as a legislative proposal.
Very good. Any other discussion? Nope. Lisa?
None from the public.
Well, very well. So, Christina, we're ready to vote.
Deborah Brown,
Yes.
Max Disposti,
Yes.
Wendy Strack.
Yes.
Thank you. Christina Wong.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Thank you, Christina. So I think the next one is about the 1 hour of direct supervisor contact. Roseanne?
Yes, this is one of those items where COVID has changed our perspective greatly in the course of the year. We thought it was a simple fix last year. We were had considered and approved running the Omni bill that 1 hour of direct supervisor contact face-to-face must be in person. Given the developments of the past year, I do not think we want to do that without further discussion at the Telehealth Committee of the implications of that. And so I propose deferring this item for further, not making the change in the omnibus bill this year and deferring to the Telehealth Committee for further discussion on this item.
Thank you, Roseanne. So, so in that sense, we don't need to make any motion, right?
No, you're fine. Yeah,
No.
they'll just put it on the Telehealth Committee agenda.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So should we open up for a discussion or should we just wait until the Telehealth Committee?
Well, it would probably be more productive for the committee who's actually going to look at making those changes to hear any suggestions. I don't know who's even on that committee and when it will start to meet. Or they can also put their suggestions in writing and go ahead and send them to Kim or someone at the board so they can compile those ahead of time before the Telehealth Committee.
Okay.
My recommendation would be just to agree with Roseanne's suggestion to defer to telehealth and then move on and let all the comments happen at that committee.
Awesome. That's
So I have a question, procedural question. So I agree with that option. But at the moment, as we stand, I know we apply a waiver in regards to this because of COVID. Am I right? So at the moment,
Yes.
so just because we are with the public, so that they know that this is actually not applicable at the moment because of COVID. Okay.
It's correct. Good point.
yes. So, so in that sense, I think we can then, maybe just have a motion, to defer it back. No, not even a motion.
You don't even need that. You don't have to act on it, and the Telehealth Committee will take it up and we'll make sure it's on the agenda. And
okay, so we'll just move on. Okay. Thank you, Roseanne.
Item number 4, notice to clients about filing a complaint. The year before last, with AB 630, the board amended the law to require unlicensed or unregistered therapists in exempt settings to provide their clients with a notice about where to file a complaint about the therapist. At the time, as part of the deal for getting the bill through, the Senate Business and Professions Committee requested that we also add language that be included at a later date to provide clients of, we're going to add to the notice for unlicensed people who are unsure if their therapist is licensed or registered, basically telling them to contact the board if they're unsure so that we can look it up for them, or they can go to the website and look it up. So adding this language would provide a consumer who's unsure about their therapist license status with an additional resource of the board's contact number and website so they could check. And this was due to a concern by the committee that somebody might not know. It was the concern arose at a time where it would be difficult to amend the bill without it making it without delaying the bill. So we just stated that we would pursue the change at a later date.
Right.
Open that up for discussion.
Yes, thank you so much. So this is already in the works. So it's really about adding the language, to clarify that. So any discussion from the board members?
Clarification for me. I remember, we had a lengthy conversation about this. There was some concern about where the language was going to be adopted. For instance, if it was on an informed consent form, or if the clinical settings and providers would post that or give the information to the clients as they come in. Can you refresh my memory about that, Roseanne?
It needs to be given to the client. Now, it does not have to be on a specific informed consent. It can be a standalone piece of paper. It can be as part of other standard language or clarifications or information that the therapist gives out. It just needs to be, the wording needs to be given to the client so that we're hoping that they'll save it. And if they ever have a concern, then they can go to their files and look up what they need to do, what they can do.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thanks for the reminder. Thank you.
Yes. And this bill's already signed, last year. So we're basically following up with the, with the committee's recommendation to add the language, in our law. So, yeah. Okay. Any other public comments?
Yes, Kiana Robinson.
Okay.
Hi. I just had a quick question about this. So this would only be for non-in-person services, right? Because if we are meeting the client in person, and once we've been able to resume, they would already see that we are licensed, because we have to have our license and registration posted for the clients to see, right?
So it's a requirement that all therapists have to give, whether they're meeting in person or if it's via telehealth. It's just a piece of paper at the beginning of therapy that says, hey, if you ever have a complaint, here's where you file the complaint at. If it's in person, it can be a piece of paper. If it's via telehealth, it can be, like a PDF document that's emailed to the client. It just has to be provided to the client so they have that to take home for their records. That makes sense?
Yeah, but I'm referring to the additional language that's added for the license verification for them to go onto the website, or they can contact the board. The clients would already be able to verify the license because we have to have it posted. So I'm just trying to understand why that language only being added because there's a possibility that we may be seeing clients not in person a little bit longer than expected.
I think, let's let Kim, maybe you can provide a little context.
So the additional language was a compromise to get AB 93 through and some of the bills that we're going through. All we're doing is just adding that language. And if you think of it in the context of when you go into your pharmacy and you see the big notice to consumers poster, it's just out there to alert the clients and who regulates that profession. So that's all we're doing here, is giving you that opportunity to provide that notification to your clients in a way that's not as onerous as a huge sign in your office, but rather, however you want to incorporate that in your practice. But it is a notice that does need to be given to your clients. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Yeah, so it's not an either or situation. It's not either you can verify my license on GCA's license verification, or here's my registration that's posted. Both need to be implemented.
Yeah. Yes. And, quite frankly, I know that you're probably not one of them, but we have many folks that falsify their license, altering the issue and renewal dates. And so, it's just another tool that we can give consumers to verify that you have an active and valid license.
Okay, thank you.
And so Ms. Robinson, it might seem that we're making, a lot of the, the hurdles for, for the therapists, to provide these information. But really, again, it's about, again, the consumer protection so that they're well informed, who is regulating the licensees, and if they have a complaint that, where they can go. So not to encourage them to do it, but really is provide them that information right off the back so that they are aware.
Yes, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Wonderful. Any other comments, Lisa?
Yes, HD. He did.
Hi. I work for, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I work for LA County, and we have implemented a form that we're putting into the like the consent for services process. I'm wondering, and just advice from BBS, whether or not we should implement a policy as well.
Good question. Kim, would you like to pick up this question?
I would, the policies that employers put in, I think that's strictly up to the employer. If you feel like that's a good thing to do, then certainly do it. It's not something that BBS would require you to do it. We're simply requiring the language.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So Lisa, any other public comments?
No other comments at this time.
Wonderful, wonderful. So we can, let's have a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Max make a motion and Christina will second. And Christina, what the motion language is?
I love how you approve the motion before I get to say it. You'll just go with whatever I say, huh? Direct staff to make any discussed changes and any non-substantive changes and bring to the board for consideration as a legislative proposal.
All right, so you have Max being moved the motion and I'll second. Any other discussion? No. Public? So Emily, I saw you on the, on your video. Are you making a comment?
Yes, is this the time to make a comment about AB 330, the fee increase for associate MFTs and licensed clinicians?
No, this discussion is particularly for, for the language, for the language of notice to client about the filing a complaint. So,
okay.
Yeah, I'm so sorry that we cannot, discuss about that right now. So, let's see. So Kim, so it looks like you have some other comments, right? That you want to.
I was just going to respond to her that we've already had public comment. That period is passed. So I don't see another opportunity on the agenda to have that comment. But you're certainly welcome to submit them in writing if you want, using the emails on our website.
Yes.
And I'll give you mine. It's Kim, Madsen, MADSEN @dca.ca.gov.
And that was DTA.ca?
DCA, Dick Charlie
DCA.
Apple.
Yes. Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I will send that email along. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Emily. And I apologize for not being able to receive your comment now. Thank you. All right. So any other public comments, Lisa?
No, ma'am.
Awesome. So we're ready to vote. Christina?
Sorry, Deborah Brown?
Yes.
Max Disposti?
Yes.
Lindy Strack?
Yes.
Christina Wong?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Christina. So the next one is about timing of providing the notice to clients about, nope, we've done that one.
No, this is right.
Petition for reinstatement. Right. Yeah.
No, that we're still on item 5.
Oh,
so this
sorry.
This is a different amendment, a separate amendment to the same general topic.
Oh, yes, thank you. Yes.
So, so the item 5 talks about the same general language of the required notice to consumers, but the board had some thoughts last year now about the timing of when the notices and wanted to make some amendments there. As written with AB 630, the practitioner is required to provide the notice to clients prior to initiating psychotherapy services.
Right.
In most cases, that's not a problem. But the stakeholders did raise the comment that in certain crisis situations, it might not be feasible or appropriate to stop providing immediate services and provide and discuss the required notice. So the board decided to propose clarifying the notice and state instead that the notice must be provided either prior to initiating psychotherapy services or as soon as practically possible thereafter. That would provide clarity that in a crisis situation with a new patient, the practitioner does not need to stop urgent services to provide the notice, and they can do so as soon as the crisis has been safely addressed. So the suggested language, to use the term as soon as practically possible, is similar to language that is used in law regarding mandated reporting of child abuse and also elder dependent and adult abuse. So that's where we got that particular phrase. The board also at that time decided it would be helpful to include language affirmatively stating that the delivery of the notice shall be documented. That way it's clear that, that the therapist needs to document that they provided it. And that is consistent with a provision in law about telehealth and consent to telehealth. So it's consistent with, there's already precedent for that.
Right.
So with that, I'll open it up to discussion.
Yes, and thank you so much. I just get confused.
No, it's okay. I separated those because there's kind of two different bigger things.
Yes. So this is really about the clarification of the timing. When to deliver that. Notice. So Max, that kind of answer your question. So, any other comments from the board members? Seeing none, Lisa.
Fiona has a comment.
Hi, Brianna.
I'm so sorry again.
No need to apologize. You're fine.
But, this one sounds more like it would be something that would be added to an exam, as far as maybe a law and ethics question or about us, what should you do prior to seeing a client, or what should be added in the informed consent. Although I know that you guys said it doesn't have to be added specifically to the informed consent. So as someone who's currently studying, I just wanted to know if this is something that would be added to the exam, the handbook, the candidate handbook, and to the topics, and if I should be adding this also to my study materials.
So Kiana, I have to say you're asking some very good question here.
Yes.
So Kim, go ahead.
So Kiana, what happens is this is a proposal and won't be effective at the earliest it would become effective would be January 1st, 2022. And as we do our exam development, they slowly incorporate these kinds of new law changes. So you're not going to see this question on an exam much before, I would even say, the summer of 2022.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So that is a really, honestly, very good question. And I think that, Kim's explanation applies to many other law changes. So when we discussed about this, it doesn't necessarily go right into the examination preparation yet. So, so thank you, Kim, for clarifying the time so that the registrants who are studying for the exam know what to do. So thank you so much. Any other public comments?
Not at this time.
Great. So motion, board members? Okay, Wendy, yay.
I'll make the motion, whatever Christina says.
I love it.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Christina.
Direct staff to make any discussed changes and any non-substantive changes and bring to the board for consideration as a legislative proposal.
All right, so I'll second it. So any other discussion? No, I see none from board members. And Lisa?
None from the public.
Great, we're ready to vote.
Okay. Deborah Brown?
Yes.
Max Discosti?
Yes.
Wendy Strack?
Yes.
Christina Wong?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Christina.
You're
So
welcome.
let's move on to the petitions for reinstatement or modification for penalty.
Yes, this is proposed changes to section 4990.30. The board's legal counsel has recommended clarifying certain provisions regarding the procedure for petitioning to terminate probation early or modify a penalty in order to clear up some ambiguities. There's two different things we'd like to clarify. Subdivision B currently specifies timeframes after which a petition can be filed. Until recently, the board has operated under the assumption that during the time during that a probation is told also counts toward the specified timeframes. However, an administrative law judge corrected us on that. It's stating it's incorrect, and staff wishes to clarify that now that timeframes exclude any periods of probation tolling. And then second, subdivision C states that a petition may be heard either by the board or that the board can assign administrative law judge to the case. However, subdivision D kind of confuses the issue because it implies that a petitioner has some say in who hears the case. It states the petitioner may request that the board schedule the hearing on the petition for a board meeting at a specific city where the board regularly meets. So the intent of this is probably like if the board's going to be in Southern California and the person lives in Southern California, they can request it there. That's only if the board is hearing it. It kind of implies that they can request the board to hear it instead of an administrative law judge and then request where it is. And that's not the case. So we want to clarify that to basically say that if the petitioner can only request a hearing location if the board is hearing the case, not an administrative law judge. So
Right.
I will open that up for discussion.
Thank you very much. So any questions from the board members? I see none. Okay, so for public, Lisa?
I see none for the public.
Awesome, very good. So then we can go forward for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Max? And Deborah, second. And the
Now
motion,
to direct staff to make any discussed changes and any non-substantive changes and bring to the board for consideration of the legislative proposal.
awesome. So the motion's on the table. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none. And Lisa?
None from the public.
Wonderful. So let's vote. Christina?
Deborah Brown,
Yes.
Max Disposti,
Yes.
Wendy Strack,
Yes.
Christina Wong.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And so Roseanne, the next one is acceptable LCSW continuing education provider.
Yes, with number 7, currently the law states that social workers can only obtain continuing education from an accredited school if the school is accredited by the Commission on Accreditation of Social Work Education. It does not specifically permit social workers to gain CE from a school accredited by the U.S. Department of Education or the Bureau for Private Post Second 6.22 to permit clinical social workers to also obtain CE from a school accredited by USDE or BPPE, or approved by BPPE. I will open that up to discussion.
Thank you so much. So I know this is kind of technical, and I know that also this is kind of rare, but at the same time, if say like our licensees, really got the CEU from, from the, accredited agency, if they just, by chance, get the, C's from those schools, will staff take any action and say this is not, acceptable? Kim, what do you think?
Well, if we apply the letter of the law, yeah, we wouldn't, right now, we wouldn't be able to. What it says is that you have to get it from the social work accredited school. So the Council on Social Work Education is the one that sets the education criteria for those schools. It's only accredits the program as opposed to the entire school. Right. So technically, the way the law reads, if you went to any school that is regionally accredited and took your CE, technically the social worker may not be able to count it. So this seems to correct that.
Yes, absolutely. I just want the public to be really aware of that, and also knowing the importance of of clarifying that the language to make it crystal clear. That there is a definitely an unintended consequences of the language. Yeah.
Right. So this makes it more inclusive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Sabina, you showed up. So do you have any comments?
I was just making sure I was here in case there were any questions, but I agree. Yeah, what Kim and Roseanne were saying, that just kind of clarifies that because it was an unintended consequence.
So Sabina, your volume go in and out so that you know.
I know. They told me, Christina and Cesar told me too, so I don't know what. I might reboot and try again.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Sabina. Board members, questions, comments, feedback. Max.
I just remember that this conversation came before us maybe a couple of years ago because it was misinterpreted. I mean, no, the way it was posted wasn't inclusive as we wanted to. And it was one of those things where left a hole into the interpretation. So I'm really glad that we got this fixed.
Yes.
There are no questions about it.
Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful. So any other board members' comments? Good. Lisa, public?
Rebecca Gonzalez.
Hi, Rebecca Gonzalez. Yay. Becca, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Rebecca Gonzalez, NASW, California. Just to let you know, we are fine with this change. Sometimes social workers might want to take courses from other schools like public health. And so this will help us. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. So any other public comments?
I see no other comments at this time.
Very well. So we can have a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second. And Christina, the motion, please read the motion.
Direct staff to make any discussed changes and any non-substantive changes and bring to the board for consideration as a legislative proposal.
Thank you. Any other discussion? See none from the board members. And Lisa?
None from the public.
Great. So we're ready to vote.
Deborah Brown?
Here. Yes.
Max Disposti?
Yes.
Wendy Strack?
Yes.
Christina Wong?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We all get a little loopy, after, on the Zoom meeting for so long. So let's move on. And it's number 8, delete duplicative definition of supervision.
Yes, we have the definition of supervision is in Lpcc statute twice. The sections are Business and Professions Code 4999.12 and 499.46.1. Since 4999.12 defines terms used throughout the Lpcc licensing statute, it's most appropriate there, but it does not need to be duplicated in the other section. So we're just recommending that it be deleted from, the definition of supervision be deleted from 4999.46.1.
Very simple, straightforward. We don't want to have 2 double standards. So we just find one. Board members, question? No? Great. Lisa?
Nobody from the public.
Wonderful. So motion, I'll move. I need a second.
I'll second. Sorry.
So Max came in, swoop it away. So
Sorry,
it's
no, it's okay. Whoever was first, I couldn't see them.
Christina and Max. We'll save them for the next time. And the motion is Christina.
To direct staff to make any discussed changes and any non-substantive changes and bring to the board for consideration as a legislative proposal.
Great, thank you. And any other discussion? Nope. Lisa.
And from the public.
Wonderful. Ready to vote.
Deborah Brown.
Yes.
Max Disposti.
Yes.
Wendy Strack.
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't hear Wendy's vote.
Sorry, I got too far away. Yes.
Okay. Christina Wong.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you so much. And and again, you have to bear with my singing, recitation, the speech. So thank you so much. And Roseanne, let's move on to the next one.
All right, item 9, fines for Licensing Act violations. LMFT and LPCC law both have provisions establishing a misdemeanor charge and a fine of $2,500 or 6 months in jail or 6 months in county jail for violating respective licensing acts. LCSW law has this clause as well, but the fine is less. It's only $1,000. And LEP law states that a violation is a misdemeanor, but it does not specify a punishment or of a jail time or a fine. Staff believes that that it should be consistent across all license types and not have differing fines and wording across the license types. Both LMFT and LPCC sections have the $2,500 fine, which makes sense because LPCC law was modeled after LMFT law, but the LCSW section is way out of sync with the other two. Legislative history, unfortunately, that might explain the reason for the discrepancies is not available back to the 1980s, which is when this was last amended. And so we really don't know why the differing amounts were put in place. The Board of Psychologies was also amended in the 80s, and it establishes a different fine of $2,000. So we don't really know why it is that they're differing, but the fine referenced are court fines. The board has its own authority to fine administrative fines for like cite and fine for regulations. We've done this in regulations in section 1886.40, which establishes fines of up to $2,500 for citable offenses or up to $5,000 for other certain types of offenses. But the fines that we're looking at in this particular case are court fines. So we're recommending changing the language instead of listing a fine, just to saying a violation is subject to a fine as determined by the court and or 6 months in jail. That would make it consistent across the license types. We did reach out last year to Assembly Business and Professions Committee to see if they had any feedback on the issue or to see if it could be addressed as a cleanup amendment, and they were amenable to looking into it. So that's where we're at with that, and we'd like to proceed this year.
Thank you, Roseanne. So this is not about imposing heavier penalty. It's about like making the language consistent across
Equity,
all license type. Yeah. Any questions from the board? Seeing none, Lisa.
None from the public right now.
Wonderful. We must be doing really good. And Roseanne, you must be doing a good job. So let's have a motion. Wendy, Deborah.
I'll make a motion.
Max, second. Do we have I need a second. Deborah, thank you. Don't be shy, Wendy. Chime in. So we have a Max and Deborah. And Christina, and the motion is?
Direct staff to make any discussed changes and any non-substantive changes and bring to the board for consideration as a legislative proposal.
Thank you very much. So any other discussion? Not from the board? And Lisa?
And none from the public.
Great. So time to vote. Christina?
Deborah Brown?
Yes.
Max Disposti?
Yes.
Wendy Strack?
Yes.
Christina Wong?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. So let's move on to the last of this section, and that would be the correct numbering reference.
Yes, this is just a numbering reference correction because the law has changed over time. 4996.17.2C contains an incorrect reference about out-of-state applicants. It refers to complying with subdivision G of 4996.18. That subdivision G is no longer, it's been renumbered. So the correct reference is for out-of-state applicants is to 4996.18E. Which states that an out-of-country degree must be deemed equivalent to a council on social work education degree. So we're just recommending that we correct that reference to reference 4996.18E.
Thank you, Roseanne. I don't think there's any objection to renumber. So assume that no, no board comments, huh? We're all good about that. And public, Lisa?
And no public comments either.
Awesome. So, motion?
I'll make a
Wendy.
Oh, perfect. Wendy first.
So Wendy and Max, I assume? Okay, and Christina, the motion?
Yes. to direct staff to make any discussed changes and any non-substantive changes and bring to the board for consideration as a legislative proposal.
Great. Any other discussion? Seeing none from board members. And Lisa?
None from the public.
I think we're ready to vote.
Deborah Brown,
Yes.
Max Disposky,
Yes.
Wendy Strack,
Yes.
Christina Wong.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. So let me explain, let me share my thoughts about, the break and whatnot. So, we can either take a 5 minutes break now, or we can wait until we finish this section and then take a lunch break. So board members, Max, what do you think?
Well, I'm always about breaks, but I don't want to impose my will on everybody else. I think maybe 5 minutes because we have been going, for an hour and 20 minutes already since the last one, right?
Okay. Let's take a, really quick 5 minutes break. And I really want to, get this done and then, set for lunch. So, so let's do that. So now the time is 11:18 and let's come back at 11:24 and take a quick break. So we'll be back. Thank you. So we're live. Okay. Well, welcome back. Welcome back to the Board of Behavioral Sciences, the Policy and Advocacy Committee. And let's resume the meeting. The time now is 11:25 a.m. And we will have Roseanne to talk about section 4, number 1, about qualification for licensure or registration.
Yeah, we're closing in on the final stretch here. These last four proposals are cleanup that we had proposed and the board had approved last year to make the law consistent with AB 2138. So I'll go through those. The first one, item 1, qualifications for licensure or registration. So these sections list the criteria needed to qualify for a license or registration. And one of these criteria is the person must not have committed any acts, and acts is the key word here, any acts or crimes constituting grounds for denial under Business and Professions Code 480. So AB 2138 back in 2018 changed Business and Professions Code section 480 pretty substantially. That section is used to allow denial of a license based on convictions or certain acts involving fraud, honesty, or deceit. However, the language was changed and now denial is permitted based on types of convictions or based on formal discipline due to professional misconduct. So the word acts is not used anymore. We need to make the law consistent. And so we're proposing striking the old language that the applicant must not have any committed acts or crimes constituting grounds, and just simply state that the person must not be subject to denial of licensure pursuant to section 480.
Thank you, Roseanne. More straightforward language. Yep. Awesome. Board members, questions? Seeing none. Lisa.
None from the public.
Wonderful. Motion, please.
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead, Max. You make a motion.
I'll make a motion and Christina does the rest.
Christina, so it's Max and Christina, and then Christina, motion language, please.
To direct staff to make any discussed changes and any non-substantive changes and bring to the board for consideration as a legislative proposal.
Great. Any other discussion? None from board members? Lisa?
And none from the public.
Great. Let's vote.
Deborah Brown?
Yes.
Wendy Strack?
Yes.
Max Disposky?
Yes.
Christina Wong?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. So let's move on to number 2 about the reference to Penal Code section 290.
Yes. Penal Code 290 specifies various types of crimes for which registration as a sex offender is required. The Penal Code 290 is being reorganized effective January 1, 2021. That's already signed into law. under the new version of the law, the types of sex offenses have been organized into 3 tiers, depending on the severity of the crime. The higher the tier, the longer the registration requirement. So AB 2138 amended section 480 to specify that only the 2 higher tier sex offenses in the new Penal Code section 290 are subject to denial regardless of the 7-year age limitation. However, there's several sections in the board's practice acts that specify denial for any required registration under Penal Code 290. These are now overridden by changes made in AB 2138. So we want to make the law consistent with the new law under 2138. So we want to amend the above listed sections of Business and Professions Code to specify that any denials due to Penal Code section 290 registration must also be in accordance with conditions for denial specified in section 480. So it's just a cross-reference to point to, hey, it also has to comply with this.
Yes, the cross-referencing is important to be consistent. So, board members, question? Looking good. Lisa?
None from the public.
Yes. So, motion, please. Who wants to make a motion?
Make a move.
Max. And the second? And Deborah. Okay. So it's Max and Deborah. Christina, motion.
Direct staff to make any discussed changes and any non-substantive changes and bring to the board for consideration as a legislative proposal.
Okay. So I think we're clear about the motion, even though you break out a little bit. Yeah. So
my internet's really unstable right now.
Yeah. Thank you, Christina. So any other discussion from the board member? Nope. Seeing none. Lisa.
James Maddox.
All right, Mr. Maddox, you're on.
I'm sorry, I'm a little slow on the uptake. Does this mean that a lower level sex offender will not be denied a license?
It means that they changed Penal Code section 290 and section 480, which is already in the law, that there's certain lower level sex offenses that are not subject to the 7-year limitation. And that was done via AB 2138 in the amendments to section 480. And so that is, it's already was signed into law. And so this change is just simply making our law referencing that, hey, you need to look at this section too, because they need to be consistent. Our actions need to be consistent with that law.
So Kim, go ahead.
So it's putting a 7-year time limit on it. So if the offense was older than 7 years and that's all that they have, and everything else, and there's no other rationale to deny legally, then to answer that question. And I'll let Sabina kind of weigh in. I don't know if she dropped off or there she is, but that's yes, Mr. Maddox, that to answer your question in a roundabout way, yes.
Yeah, can you guys hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay, I've been trying to play with it and I logged off and I logged back on and stuff. This is, if you want to go back for reference, look at AB 2138, and that's where all of this came from. It's nothing that the board did. We're just, this one agenda item is implementing some changes because of AB 2138. And that changed section 290, it changed, of the penal code, as well as some other code sections that affect how convictions are looked at in the licensing process. So it's nothing the board's deciding to do in reference to sex offenders or anything like that. We're just trying to comply with the law and update our all of our practice acts to comply with the new laws that came out of 2138.
Right. So it means that, it really doesn't have any implication on the disciplinary action that we take. It just basically help us to clarify, that how we look at the offense and, how we, move forward. So Max?
Yeah, I just would like, for the sake of the record, so that I understand how people, and Mr. Maddox or anyone else, might be concerned about alarming. In reality, so the state of California until several years ago was equal. I mean, for sex offenders, we didn't make any distinctions between consensual and non-consensual. For instance, if there are two adults, consensual adults, for lack of better terms, having sex in a car in a public place and being caught, they will go to the registry as a sex offenders because there wasn't a public contest. So because the state of California has revised the level of crimes from minor and major, I don't know the language, I don't want to try to interpret that, but there is a distinction between those that are consensual cases of public offenses that do not equal to, I don't know, sexual assault or any other related sex crime. So when a licensee, possible licensee might apply for perhaps with a background where it shows a consensual public act, it was caught involuntarily, or whatever the circumstances are, is considered in a different way than other related crimes, that there are sexual crimes. So I hope that helped a little bit, Mr. Maddox. I don't mean to interpret and explain the law to anybody. I'm just a little bit of history of the contest.
No, I appreciate that. I'm still distressed about it. And I recognize, Max, that if you get caught urinating in public, you can wind up being registered as a sex offender. And I understand that. Right. However, what's most troubling to me is the fact that we don't have a list of, I got to find out what makes low-level offenses. And it's troubling to know that a sex offender can get licensed. That's all. And I appreciate your input and your thanks and your clarification.
No problem. Thank you.
Yes. And so, Mr. Maddox, thank you so much for your comment and expressing your concern. So I'm sure that, it definitely, your concern shared with a lot of the board staff and our board members too. So thank you so much. Any other public comments?
Not at this time. Oh, wait, HD does.
Okay, you're on.
I just want to corroborate, the level of, I don't know, the standards of care that we need to have in our discipline. I agree that it needs to really be a higher standard, and I'm glad to hear this. This position is coming forward. So thank you for that.
Yes, thank you so much for your idea. Yeah, I actually your comments. Anything else?
Not at this time.
Great. So let's move to the next step, which is for the motion. I'll move.
I can second.
Second. So Christina and Max, and Christina, would you say the motion, please?
Direct staff to make any discussed changes and any non-substantive changes and bring to the board for consideration as a legislative proposal.
Thank you. Question from the board members. Further discussion? No? Lisa?
No, none from the public at this time.
Wonderful. So I think we're ready to vote.
Deborah Brown?
Yes.
Max Disposti?
Yes.
Wendy Strack?
Yes.
Christina Wong?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And then the second last in this agenda item is about the unprofessional conduct provision.
Yes, so these sections contain a definition of a conviction. However, AB 2138 amended the definition of a conviction in Business and Professions Code, section 7.5 for the purposes of denying a license pursuant to section 480. So we've made an amendment to the referencing definition here. These sections also contain language permitting suspension, revocation, or denial of a license regardless of whether a conviction has been dismissed pursuant to Penal Code 1203.4. However, due to amendments made in AB 2396 and AB 2138, denial of license is not permitted based on this type of dismissed conviction. So therefore, we need to update the language and make an amendment saying the board, stating that actions to suspend, revoke, deny, or a license must be in compliance with Division 1.5 of the Business and Professions Code. That's the section that contains Section 480 and all of its related statutes regarding denial or suspension of revocation of a license. So we're proposing to amend the conviction reference to reference to Business and Professions Code 7.5, and then also the reference to any actions to suspend, revoke, or deny must be in accordance with Division 1.5 of the BPC.
Yes. Thank you, Roseanne. So this is really triggered by the 2 law, and so that we need to make amendments. So nothing really new. Well, the new is the new law. So for board members, comments? No? Lisa?
And from the public at this time.
Okay, thank you so much, Lisa. So let's see. So I think we're ready to have a motion. Oh,
I'll move a motion.
I will second then. And Christina, the motion language, please.
Direct staff to make any discussed changes and any non-substantive changes and bring to the board for consideration as a legislative proposal.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none from the board members. And Lisa?
None from the public.
Yes. We're ready to vote.
Deborah Brown?
Yes.
Max Disposky?
Yes.
Wendy Strack?
Yes.
Christina Wong?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And the last of this agenda item is about references to statutes governing license denial, suspensions, or revocations. Roseanne, please.
So Business and Professions Code 4999.80 is a section of LPCC law. It references laws governing license denial, suspensions, and revocations. Business and Professions Code 490 governs license suspensions and revocations. And it's not included in the list of reference sections. Board staff simply believes it should be. So we're recommending an amendment to include section 490 in the list of reference sections.
Yes. Thank you. So another very straightforward is just to add language to clarify. So board members, question? Nope. Lisa, you see any public?
Yes, Rebecca Gonzalez.
Hi, Rebecca.
No, just a question. Are there any conflicts with AB 2138 in the new section you're referencing?
No, it's just there's a list of reference sections and 490 is just left out. So
okay,
we just want to reference that too.
Thank you.
Great. Any others, Lisa?
No, I see no others.
Awesome. Very good. So we're ready for a motion. I'll move. Oh, Wendy, please move. Wendy, move.
Whatever Christina says.
And Deborah, second. Yes. So whatever Christina said, go ahead.
Direct staff to make any discussed changes and any non-substantive changes and bring to the board for consideration as a legislative proposal.
We're clear. Any further discussion? None from board members. And Lisa?
None from the public.
Great. So I think we are ready to vote. Christina, please.
Deborah Brown?
Yes.
Max Disposky?
Yes.
Wendy Strack?
Yes.
Christina Wong?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And I want to, thank Roseanne. This is like a big, gigantic, packet. So thank you so much for working on it. And thanks, Lisa, for helping with the public comment. Big hand and big applause, Lisa helping out. So
it definitely was bigger than last year.
Yes, definitely. And so, because of, I know that there are a lot of the Kaiser public members from the public, wanting to, to share. And so let's go over the item number 6, real quick, and then we will move on to the discussion about the Kaiser related item. So Roseanne, please move on to the the 6th agenda item about the practice setting definitions.
Yes, item number 6 ties into item number 7. So we'll start with that first. Item number 6 is a bill proposal that the board approved to run last year. We actually did pursue a bill proposal and got a bill number for it last year. It was AB 2363. However, due to COVID-19, the legislature had to significantly pare down its legislation. Legislators were asked only to pursue essential legislation. And so unfortunately, the author was not able to continue running this bill. But what this bill would do, this bill is a result of the exempt setting committee that the board had formed over the past several years to examine mental health services provided in exempt settings to determine if consumers are receiving services consistent with the standard of care. And then the other objective was to examine different types of practice setting definitions to determine if setting definitions need to be refined. And that's what this bill focuses on. And so the proposed language of the bill has already been reviewed and approved by the board, but because we have so many new board members and because it's been a year, we felt it was in good faith to bring it back for a second approval. The proposal basically specifies definitions of the various types of practice settings that licensees and applicants may be working in. Right now, the law isn't abundantly clear about all the types of sections and the rules related to them. So it classifies all settings into 2 main types. And then we have exempt settings and non-exempt settings. The definition of exempt settings remains the same. It's a school, college, university, a government entity, or a nonprofit and charitable institution. And then we define non-exempt settings as anything that's not an exempt setting, which seems a little broad, but there's a reason for that. We then, from there, under the umbrella of non-exempt settings, we carve out 2 specific types of non-exempt settings that the board felt needed specific additional oversight. And that is private practices and professional corporations. These definitions are used to place certain limitations on these specific types of settings. The bill reiterates that an individual working in an exempt setting who holds a board-issued license or registration is under the jurisdiction of the board, because that's a question that we get frequently. It reiterates that an active license or registration number is required to provide psychotherapeutic services in any non-exempt setting, which is a clarification problem right now, with 2 exceptions. It specifies that a trainee may provide services in a non-exempt setting as long as it's not a private practice or a professional corporation, if they're under the jurisdiction and supervision of their school as a trainee. And that's a big step that will really help for schools to clear up a lot of confusion about where trainees can work. And then the second exception is it specifies that an applicant for associate registration who's following the 90-day rule can provide services in a non-exempt setting as long as it is not a private practice or professional corporation. The bill also specifies that an entity that is licensed or certified by a government regulatory entity or agency to provide healthcare services is not considered a private practice setting. It specifies that supervision of all individuals in exempt settings may be done via video conferencing. Previously, the law was silent on trainees, and we're going to discuss trainees more in the Telehealth Committee. It specifies supervisors, it limits supervisors in any non-exempt setting to 6 individual or triadic supervisees at a time. Previously, the limit was 3 associates per supervisor in a private practice or a corporation. It permits contracted supervisors in private practice or professional corporations. The supervisor must provide psychotherapeutic services to the clients at the same site as the associate. And then it prohibits, there's some more technical things. It prohibits, it expands who's prohibited from using fictitious business names and some things like that. We have a minor difference in Lpcc proposed language. Right now it states that trainees can be working in various settings if they're working in a recognized training program. There's really no such thing as a recognized training program. The board doesn't recognize specific training programs. We cleaned up this language in LCSW law the year before last because it kind of implies that they could potentially work in a private practice. So we're proposing to clean that up here as well in this bill. So I'm going to open it up for initial discussion, and then we can continue on to the Kaiser discussion as well.
Thank you, Roseanne. So, as I'm actually, I think Deborah and I were both on the exam committee and really worked, with Roseanne and the stakeholders, to come up with this set of the language, and it's been approved by the board. So I think particularly, Wendy, since you're, one of the board members, definitely want to hear from you and see if you have any questions, that need clarification or some other input that can have, can make the language even better.
I don't think I have any particular suggestions at this time. I'm still trying to get up to speed on the issue in general. So any other discussion from the more senior tenured board members, I think would be helpful for me.
Thank you. Thank you, Wendy. So Lisa, any, do you see any public comments?
Yes, Ben Caldwell.
Ben.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Ben Caldwell, licensed MFT. I'll make myself better lit so you can see me. There we go. It's good to see everyone. I know this bill has been a long time in coming. I appreciate the board's longstanding work on it. There are two things that I think what we've gone through over the past few months with COVID have really highlighted a need to attend to. And one is the allowance of video-based supervision in exempt settings, but not elsewhere. I know that it's allowed right now under a waiver, but I think it might be worth revisiting. Should we allow video-based supervision in all work settings? We have a lot of folks who are engaging primarily in telehealth, and that's not going to go away when COVID ends. And so if somebody is conducting telehealth as part of their work as an employee in a private practice, should it be acceptable for them to receive some or even all of their supervision through the same technology that they're using to provide clinical services? And then related, there is the requirement for a supervisor to see clients at the same site as where the supervisee is working. And considering that a lot of supervisors are also primarily providing services via telehealth, this seems like a strange requirement. So I wondered if we could revisit discussion of those two elements in particular. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. That is, that wonderful comments. So Roseanne, so what do you think?
So for the first comment, for the allowance of video-based supervisors in exempt settings, but not elsewhere. This bill, it opens it up, and that this was the language before COVID, obviously, that we considered this. So a lot's changed now, and we definitely recognize that. The section that you're referring to for MFTs is 4980.43.2 subsection E on page 9. We have, right now it just says an associate, so we have broadened that to a supervisee working in an exempt setting can do supervision via telehealth. Previously it did not address trainees, it only addressed associates. So that's a change that this bill was already making, was already approved. But in terms of whether or not the allowance should be in a video supervision should be in exempt settings or not elsewhere, I think that's best left to the Telehealth Committee. We kind of haven't vetted that particular piece out yet. It's a big discussion. It's definitely something that has come up via the whole COVID situation, but I don't know where this bill is ready to go. I don't know that piece really is yet.
Thank you. And yeah, I wouldn't want it to be a blocker to the forward movement of the bill. It's just worthy of consideration.
Yeah. Thank you, Ben. Yeah. Go ahead, Roseanne.
For the second piece, that's definitely a valid question that has been, it's an issue that has been raised by COVID, and we can discuss that At the time that we discussed this bill, previously the law said that the supervisor had to see clients and work full time at the site. It's relaxed a little bit. In this bill proposal, we hadn't relaxed it completely. My recollection is that the board had serious, concerns that in private practices and professional corporations that a bit more oversight was needed, and they wanted the supervisees to have more of a stake in what's going on at the setting. So that was the thought at the time. Certainly welcome to reopen that discussion on that.
Max, go ahead.
I just would like to chime in on what Ben said, because I understand the concern. And I also believe that once COVID is over, whatever that's going to look like, I know that the new way of, telehealth is becoming a communality that people are actually, is bridging people together at the same time, has broke down barriers of distances, and especially for those service providers that are much smaller, those exempt settings. And it also reopened the conversation on my advice, in my opinion, in regards to the presence of the supervisor on site, because I can see, as a small nonprofit, I can see how this could create a challenge. Even though I remember the conversation, I agree as well to what the board has decided then, so I don't mean to undermine that, but really things are changing really fast in regards to the needs, but also maintaining the quality of services that we provide. And I don't see that one could compromise the other. Just the actual physical presence doesn't automatically translate into good quality of services versus poor quality of services. So I'm very open to review that conversation, Ben, and I'm sure we will. And I understand also the telehealth community could be the right place to do this, because it will really go in insight about what we are experiencing right now. So I just wanted to comment your comments, and that's it.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So I totally agree with Ben, because COVID has thrown out everything that everything we thought was good is now changing. Telehealth is going to be staying, and a lot. My recommendation, if I'm looking out the door, would be to have the Telehealth Committee address it fully, because this is going to be the one opportunity to get it right. They're going to be dealing with COVID all the way up and through next year. We don't know legislatively if we are going to have another bill limit again. So there is a need to have the settings defined better than they are in law. And then I would really like to see a very robust conversation with the stakeholders about telehealth and making it right, and incorporating many of the waivers that we have now that it has actually expanded practice. So that's my 2 cents. That would be my suggestion.
Right. Thank you so much, Kim. So Ben, do you have any feedback?
No, just I appreciate the support for going back to look at those, whether the vehicle is the Telehealth Committee or whatever else. I just appreciate continued attention to that, because this is certainly changing practice on a lasting basis. We're not going to go back to the way things were once COVID ends. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ben. And truly, I do want to echo, yes, you're going to come next after me. So I do want to echo, the concern, because, when COVID set in, it just throw everybody, out of the loop, because all of a sudden, you like it or not, we have to practice telehealth. And so, so I'm sure that there's just so much areas that we can address, legislative wise, practice wise, how can we really, encourage, we can set in the language, to make sure that, we are providing that, standard for the competent mental health practice. So I really share with, your concern, and I am really honestly looking forward to that discussion with the stakeholders. So stay tuned, and thank you. And Deborah.
Just for historical perspective for Wendy, discussing telehealth was way before COVID. It was more to address the rural population that couldn't get to services. And so COVID has happened as a result, but this has been in the works for at least, I'd say, close to 2 years. That we're
longer than that.
where we are. So I think, in answer to Ben, I think the silver lining, and if there can be any silver lining at all, that a pandemic happened during this process so that we can address all of the things we would have never known we needed to address, because no one has been, we just never have been in this position before. So I think that having the Telehealth Committee is going to, at this particular time, is going to be by far more advantageous had we had it a year ago. So, and I want a clarifying question here. Is it protocol that the after telehealth discusses what they do and have the discussions with everyone, does it come back to P&A before it goes to the board, or do you go telehealth straight back to the board?
So who wanna answer? Sabina? Yeah.
Yeah, typically each committee will make recommendations to the full board. Now, assuming that language is already vetted and everything like that. So unless you want it to go through P&A, you can also refer it to there if you want them to take a look at it as well. But typically the committees just refer everything to the board when they completed the language.
Okay, thank you.
So we have definitely different layers, and we have done so many different ways before. It go up, go down, So yeah, certainly we will have plenty of opportunities, whether through P&A or board, so committee, P&A, board, normally that's kind of how it goes. So I'm sure that there are plenty of, chances to really, get the input. Yeah. So let's see. So any other board members discussion, education, information, or staff? Seeing none. So Lisa, any other public comments? Whoops. Lisa, you're muted. Oh, Jen, go ahead.
Sorry about that. Jen has her hand up.
Yeah, no problem. Hi,
So,
Jen.
hi, Jennifer Alley again with CAMPed. So we did support AB 2363 last year. I think a lot of the framework, was just continuing forward, and I think that we would be in a position to support that again. But I do have, and I made earlier in the meeting, similar comments about telehealth, and just, we're really concerned, with the time frame and making sure that this gets addressed in statute, just to make sure that, to avoid the need to get waivers moving forward, and make sure that it's appropriate supervision, but able to utilize telehealth in a meaningful way to ensure that our associates and trainees are able to get their hours and keep moving forward in the pipeline. I think one of the unintended consequences that we've been concerned with any delays and being able to count their hours, it's just been that the pipeline for licensure would get really full. And I don't want that. We don't want to see that happen. So thank you again. It's been a great discussion.
Thank you, Jen. Yeah, telehealth, I tell you, this is really a challenging thing. And Deborah, what you said is totally right. That's we work on the telehealth for so long, for the out of state, for the rural people, to increase the access. And all of a sudden it's right there knocking at our door. That's we have to practice, every day. And so we didn't see it coming. At the same time, it is a good time, to revisit it again. So Lisa, any other public comments?
Yes, Josie Baker and my dog.
I think the dog can just woof it out. So Josie, Miss Baker.
Hi. I mean, I'm happy to take a backseat to the dog. Dogs come first. So I know that this isn't our agenda item, but I just wanted to say to the board that we look forward to kind of understanding and hearing what happens with the outcome of that, just because it does link into our issue in terms of the nonprofit and for-profit and the site issue. But I just wanted to kind of put that in there, that may need to go, our issue may need to and then be funneled to the Telehealth Committee as well. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Baker. So as I recall, when we were doing the exam setting committee, we did have a very big discussion about the business corporation and the definition and stuff like that. And so this particular packet of legislation, really, it's only represent a portion, from the exam setting. And we realized that, there's definitely continuous conversation needed, to really continue, to really improve the, the definition and all the related areas. So yes, more work to come, but thank you so much for your feedback, Ms. Baker.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. So anybody else, Lisa?
Yes, Kiona Robinson.
Hi, Kiona.
I'm so sorry.
No need to apologize. Please don't.
My only question would be because, or I guess just a thought of consideration is if it hasn't been thought of already, that the Telehealth Committee, or as we move in discussion about this, is giving supervisors a little bit more clarification as to how to supervise telehealth, because I work at a psychiatric hospital. I'm in the training department, so I train other therapists. And there are a lot of questions. We did, as an agency, DMH contracted, I was in charge of creating a telehealth training for not only our staff, but our supervisors. So for instance, one of the things that we already have in place, which is making sure that the client states their name and their location prior to each and every session. Supervisors, their issue was, how do I monitor that? And if it doesn't happen, what then happens to, how do I implement, or how do I reprimand my clinician? Or do I not count their hours if they don't do it correctly? For that session, if they don't get or let's say, for example, if they fail to mention to the pros and cons, or the benefits and the drawbacks of telehealth before even consenting to do telehealth services, do I withdraw those hours and not sign for them until they go back and do it correctly? So, not to make matters more complicated, I know this is already a complicated issue, but those are just some things that popped in my mind as we're having this discussion.
So, Ms. Robinson, it's actually really, really wonderful. I really like the point, and and actually, Roseanne has been writing it down, and so thank you so much for bringing this up, and bring to the board staff consideration. So yeah, I think we're going to have a very robust discussion in the Telehealth Committee. And Max, thank you so much, Ms. Robinson. And Max?
On that note, actually, I really would like to thank Ms. Robinson, because I would like to, as an appeal to the public, don't underestimate that those experiences, direct experiences, what makes the law better. So please email it to us, because those scenarios are exactly what we're looking for in making sure that we address all the nuances of this new law, and we need it. We really need it. So thank you so much for your contribution. I just, it's so valuable.
Yes. Thank you very much. So any other public comments?
I do not see any more hands at the moment. No.
Thank you so much, Lisa. So, so it looks like that, we got some really good feedback, from the public, and yet, most of the comments will be deferred back to the Telehealth Committee. At this time, I think we can probably entertain a motion.
I would like to make a motion.
Max, and I would like to second. And so the motion would be, we don't have any change. So Christina?
Direct staff to make any discussed changes and any non-substantive changes and bring to the board for consideration as a legislative proposal. Is that appropriate, Sabina?
Yes. Sabina say yes. So
I said yes.
Then that's the motion.
That's the motion. Any questions about the motion or other discussion? Seeing none? Lisa?
None from the public.
Yay! Let's roll. Let's roll to vote.
Deborah Brown,
Yes.
Max Disposti,
Yes.
Wendy Strack,
Yes.
Christina Wong.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you so much. This is another piece of hard work that we have done for a very long time, and I'm glad that it's moving forward. So I think we're ready for the Kaiser discussion. Yay. Roseanne, please.
Yes. So this is where the issue of Kaiser's concerns kind of ties in a little bit to with this bill that we just are going to be running. And so with Kaiser, they frequently, especially employ associate clinical social workers, or ASWs, who are gaining experience toward licensure. And according to their 2020 Northern California HMO provider manual, Kaiser split into 3 employing entities. There's Kaiser Foundation Health Plan, which is a nonprofit public benefit corporation. Then there's Kaiser Foundation Hospitals, which is a nonprofit public benefit corporation. And then there's the Permanente Medical Group, which is a professional corporation that provides and arranges for medical services. So there are associate social workers, from my understanding, that are working for all of these different entities. And because 2 of them are considered exempt settings and 1 of them is considered a professional corporation, there are some different rules that apply depending on which one that they're working for. And a checkup, by the way, a check of the Secretary of State's website confirms that the Permanente Medical Group is registered as a professional corporation, and the other 2 are registered as domestic nonprofits. So ASWs working for the Permanente Medical Group, the professional corporation arm, believe that it's unfair because they have certain limits on their required supervision for gaining experience hours toward LCSW licensure that ASWs working for the other 2 arms do not have. So the issue would partly resolve with the setting definitions bill that the board is proposing. So I'm going to compare and contrast kind of the existing law now with what the bill that was just approved to run would do. So under current law, an associate who is employed or volunteering in a private practice must be supervised by an individual employed by and practicing at the same site as the employer, or they can be an owner. And if the site is incorporated, which is Kaiser's professional corporation case, the supervisor right now must be employed full-time at the site and actively engaged in performing professional services at the site. Also, the supervisor is prohibited from supervising more than a total of 3 supervisees at any one time. So what this means for Kaiser right now is that for ASWs working at its professional corporation, their supervisor has to be employed there full-time, and they have to also perform professional services there at the same sites as them. And they have a limit of 3 supervisees per supervisor. So, and also for ASWs working at Kaiser's nonprofit corporations, the above limitations do not apply. They are considered to be working in an exempt setting. Now, under the proposed changes that we just considered, some of those limitations would go away, but not all of them. So under the new proposal, an associate who is employed by or volunteering in a private practice or professional corporation shall be supervised by an individual who is employed by or contracted by the associate's employer or as an owner of the practice or corporation, and they must provide professional psychotherapeutic services to the clients at the same site. So contracting is now allowed, and they don't need to be employed full-time there, but there's still the clause that they provide services to clients at the same site. There's also the limitation supervisors. There would be a limit of 6 supervisors per 6 supervisees per supervisor under the new law. So for ASWs working at Kaiser, if the new law were to take effect, Kaiser would be able to contract or arrange with outside supervisors for associates, and they would not need to be employed full-time at the same site as their associates. However, they would be required to see clients at the same site. And there would be a limit of 6 supervisees per supervisor. And again, for the nonprofit charitable corporations, the above does not apply. One question I was thinking when I was reading this, and also the email that was sent this morning, is there is a clause, if you look at the previous agenda item 6, page 6, under 4980.06, item A4, it does say that it does say that and the board had decided on this specific language. It says an entity that is licensed or certified by a government regulatory agency to provide healthcare services shall not be considered a private practice setting. So I don't know if Kaiser would fall under that or not. It may not, on my knowledge of their certifications. I know that the board had wanted that. I believe that was because if it was government, if certified, then there's some other oversight there. But I don't know if Kaiser falls under that. So that might be something to consider. I don't know how that would affect. So open it up for discussion now.
Thank you so much, Roseanne. So I think the business corporation was one of the hurdles, that we encounter, and we decided to set it aside. And so, thank you for the Kaiser Permanente staff to bring it up, and really, have create an opportunity for Roseanne, to craft, a new set of language to make it consistent. So thank you so much, Roseanne. And so at this time, board members, feedback, comments? All good? No question? Okay, Deborah.
I don't mean to melt it all down to just one thing, but I guess what the bottom line is, so there's no broker allowed, right? I mean, you've got to work for the site. You can't just you just can't be a broker out there getting therapists. Is that correct? You can't just have contracts out there? Maybe
you could be a contracted supervisor under the new proposal, but you have to be seeing clients at the site. And I believe that the committee's reasoning for that is they wanted the supervisor, they wanted somebody that was actively kind of had a stake in the business there. They didn't want just somebody in a private practice where there's less oversight than maybe other settings, or professional corporation is a type of private practice. They wanted that person to kind of be involved in what's going on, not just kind of watching from the outside. And that was, I think, to ensure quality of supervision.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this is actually really close the loop about, some of the practice, like the VA that they have a contracting agency. I think that's where, Deborah, your thought is coming from. And so I think for this particular language, since they have to be employed in the same site and have the same standard, it really closed that loophole. So
well, they don't have to be employed full time anymore, yes, but they still have to be practicing.
Yes. So wonderful. Board members, Max?
I just really would like to hear from Kaiser, from the board, and from the members as well. Yeah. So, and reserve my time to speak later if I had to. Thank you.
It's Kaiser's time. Lisa.
Okay, I have Josie Baker.
Hi, Josie.
Hi. Boy, are you guys going to get sick of me or what?
No.
So there's a couple of things, and I think maybe also my colleagues will weigh in for whatever I've forgotten. But first of all, I want to thank you again for talking about this and really wanting to have an understanding. And Kim was very accessible, and I really, really appreciate that. It really helped kind of streamline things. So I see three things right now, like major things. I'm going to start with what was just talked about in terms of the supervisor needing to be employed. It gets a little tricky because TPMG, which is the for-profit arm of Kaiser, does not employ social work LCSWs in a management position. They're RNs. And they don't do any clinical work. So not being able to do peer supervision, well, yeah, it just makes it a little harder to get supervision because of that. And oftentimes there are social workers where they're the lone social work, provider. So I guess I'm just thinking if we can kind of cross over and get supervision either outside Kaiser or get supervision with KFH supervisors, that might be really helpful, and that might be a consideration you might want to have, because if we don't have anybody available and they have to practice on the site, that's a huge, huge barrier for our ASWs that want to achieve their clinical supervision. Second thing, I don't know if you want to speak to that or if you want me to just list them.
Go ahead and list them. Yeah.
Okay. Second thing would be, you know, that I'm confused about so it's very nicely laid out in terms of that material that you provided us. And the section on page 3, it says for Kaiser under the proposal, this would mean, I just want to clarify that I'm reading this right. It says, however, the supervisors would be required to see clients at the same site. And that's where I feel like the first barrier is really causing problems, because that I mentioned, because having them be on the site, you know, and seeing those patients, it's not going to really apply.
Mm-hmm.
Then the other thing is the word site and how that's defined, because Kaiser within each area, for example, you know, the site I'm on is Oakland. It's a campus. So it's multiple buildings, multiple departments. They're spread across you know, a large piece of real estate. And that creates some issues, because you could get supervision within TPMG, but that supervisor's availability and where they're located may be next door. So based on what I've historically heard and have been informed by the BBS, is that a site is the physical building. And so that causes some more issues that I would hope would be considered.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, I think it also would be just interest, like for my own edification, understanding the intent of the exempt versus non-exempt, like what the intention is behind that law. So I do hope that my colleague can give her example, because I think she also has really compelling illustration of what I'm talking about. It might be more helpful and relevant, you know, for you to kind of wrap your head around the complicated problem that Kaiser presents here.
Okay. Thank you so much, Josie. It totally makes sense. You know, totally makes sense. And maybe we should proceed to hear some more from your coworkers, and so that we can absorb and gather more information. So hang on, you know, Josie, and you know, who else from Kaiser wants to speak? Lisa?
Yeah, is that the 2200 number? You want to speak? Well, she's not going off mute.
Okay.
Oh, there she goes.
Okay, perfect.
Hi.
Hi.
This is me. Hi. Thank you so much for this time. I just wanted to share my personal experience as an example. I work for pediatrics, and our department is actually split between 2 sites. And our team is consists of 3 social workers, 1 at one site and 2 at another, but we all work together whenever one of us is backlogged. So we're in regular contact with all of the medical teams at both sites. Right now, one of our colleagues, the one that's the lone social worker, is on leave. So my colleague and I have been taking turns to provide in-person coverage over at the other site. And under the current regulations, if I wanted to count all of my clinical supervision hours, I would need to find a supervisor at each site. Whereas my other coworkers who are part of the nonprofit, if they picked up extra hours to help out, say, hospice, transitions, and the hospital, they're all under nonprofit, but they don't, they're not located at the same building. They can still have all of their hours counted. But for me, if I were to be a team player and want to help out my colleague at a different site, because of the current guidelines, I wouldn't be able to use those hours unless I found someone, which I haven't.
Yeah, understandable. Yes, that is a really, really good example. So thank you. I mean, yeah. So I'm actually thinking that, you know, the definition of the site really create the problem. If we refer the site to only the, you know, the building itself. However, let's say if we refer to be like a campus of a facility or something like that, you know, then we can talk about that, you know. So I'll shut up and, you know, let other Kaiser people, you know, to talk first. So looks like Jennifer Key, you're on video. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, everybody. Hi. Hi, hello. And we really thank you for this time. One of the things that I have a concern about is when the proposal, you know, when it talks about supervisors, you know, doing practice. Over at Kaiser, our supervisors don't do direct patient care. What they do is that they supervise us in the work that we do. So I'm just concerned if the language means that they have to see our patients and do the care that we're doing.
Go ahead, Kim.
So I think Roseanne and Sabina, you might need to check me on this one, and Steve. I think that to be considered a supervisor, you need to be actively seeing clients. It doesn't say how many, but there should be some, the supervisor needs to be providing some therapeutic clinical services. So am I hearing that the supervision at Kaiser is maybe just supervision, maybe operationally workload, but they're not supervising clinical services?
You know, they are supervising the clinical services because we have a hybrid model, and we're going to try to put together a consistent plan. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to say what's happening in every single site.
Okay. I would, as you're developing that plan, definitely refer to the supervisor definitions and requirements to make sure that the plan is in compliance with that, because the challenge will be, we won't, you know, if it comes to our attention that is occurring or not occurring, then the associate's going to lose all their hours.
So we actually have a committee that we're working on that, and that's specifically one of the issues that we're working on, because everything based on the BBS guidelines, and we really keep abreast of it.
Okay, good.
And if I can answer that question, Kim, I'm sorry, I think I have a more detailed answer for you.
Okay.
There are many social workers within, social work managers within Kaiser Permanente who are not only providing supervisor services in the realm of Kaiser, they also have private practices. So they are clearly engaging in psychotherapy, and sometimes their experiences in their private practices are used as case discussions and training for their staff within Kaiser Permanente.
Okay, perfectly acceptable, the private practice. They just need to be practicing. So, and again, and you know, if you need, go ahead, Roseanne.
Yeah,
Roseanne. The law requires the supervisor to have practice or supervisors to the past 5 years, or 3 of the past 5 years. So it doesn't specifically require them to be active practicing currently, though if it's a professional corporation, it says the supervisor must be employed full time and be actively engaging in providing professional services at the site. So it doesn't explicitly say they have to be doing therapy one-on-one. Right now, the law would change to say that. So there's some leeway there, but you do need to be careful about the letter of the law.
Yes. So very good. Wendy, you want to have a feedback?
Just a question, kind of trying to look for a way to thread the needle here. And I know I'm new to the issue and still relatively new to the board, but could it be as simple as if, rather than referring to a site, that maybe we refer to that they're serving the same patient population or the same provider, something like that, so that recognizes sort of Kaiser's structure with the campus approach and sort of so as long as they're serving the overall provider, is there something we can do there?
Yes. Roseanne?
What if we said provide psychotherapeutic services to clients at the same private practice or professional corporation as the associates?
Would that satisfy Josie, Jennifer, the Kaiser folks? Yeah, go ahead, Josie.
Okay, I'm going to speak, but I do think Jennifer should speak too. But thank you. I guess I'm just it's tricky because we have campuses, we have service areas, like Oakland, Richmond, Penal, all scattered across, and then service areas within different counties. So it's tricky, and there are times where maybe a discipline, say I'm in pediatric genetics. To get a supervisor that's also going to be in that, they may be in pediatrics, but they may not be in pediatric genetics. So because medicine is so specialized and such a huge world, I think having a lot of kind of thoughtfulness around this issue would be really appreciated, because it's complicated.
Yeah.
I don't know if Jennifer wants to say anything as well.
Well, the other thing too about Kaiser is one thing about it being a large organization, our members have a chance to do movement. So you might be in KFH for maybe your first year, and then you may transfer to TPMG. So, and then you have some social workers who are listed in KFH, but then are reimbursed by TPMG. So there's a lot of mobility around. So I think having it as a site would be preferable because there'll be too many moving parts.
Okay.
Especially like Oakland, we have 70-something social workers and all these other different work areas that people travel around.
Right. Very good. So I see Matthew, Mr. Renzi.
Hi there, Matthew Renzi. I'm not with Kaiser. I'm an APCC with a nonprofit. But as we're talking about this, an issue that's come up for us is when a supervisor is on a extended leave of absence, maternity leave, paternity leave, something like that, and we've had to contract out for supervision. I'm wondering how this might impact Kaiser or those for-profit agencies specifically under this, where the person needs to be complied or needs to be employed with the agency, or seeing the same population, and if there can be anything written in around that or consideration around that.
Right. Kim, would you like to respond to this one?
Hi, I'm leaving. No, I don't know. I'm struggling. Quite frankly, I'm really struggling because we definitely needed some level of definition because it's really problematic. Yet I know that what we're proposing doesn't address everything, and so is it worthwhile to move forward with what we've got, coming back around to modify on the back end, or is there more value in pulling it back and continuing to live with the consequences of not having definitions, which continue to be a problem, to make this correct? And so that's one thought. And is it correct to do it in the definitions? Is it better to make the exceptions, if we're going to make them, in the supervision language? And I'm going to defer to Roseanne and Sabina on it. Because I hear what Kaiser is saying. It's a problem. I get it. Nobody should have to do what Jennifer's having to do or would have to do. So that's definitely, and our intention is not to prevent the associates from getting their experience and getting supervision. So that's where I'm landing. So I'm
You're struggling. Yes.
struggling with it, and I'm sorry. I wish I had a better direction.
So I see, Roseanne and Max after that. Okay, Roseanne, go ahead.
Okay, I just have a question for the people from Kaiser. Do you know, because we have that subsection that says an entity that is licensed or certified by a government regulatory agency to provide healthcare services shall not be considered a private practice. Is Kaiser certified by a government regulation agency to provide healthcare services? Would it fall under that category? Because then if it was, you're not considered a private practice, which a professional corporation is a type of. So
I think that's something definitely to research, because when we look at the services that we provide, we are certified under CMS to provide Medicare and Medicaid or Medi-Cal related services. We also have organizations like the California Hospital Association and California Medical Association. We must meet Joint Commission standards. So there are a number of government agencies that we must be responsible to.
Right.
So I mean, looking at that section, it's on page, under item 6, page 6, an entity that is licensed or certified by a government regulation agency to provide healthcare services. And like I said earlier, I think that was basically because there's another level of oversight. So maybe if the business can show that they're certified or licensed or certified, then that wouldn't, the limit of 6 supervisees at a time would still apply, because it's still a non-exempt set. The Permanente Medical Group was still non-exempt setting, but I'm wondering if that gets it out of the part that says if somebody's volunteering at a private practice or a professional corporation, they must be supervised by an individual who is employed or contracted by blah, blah, blah. I'm wondering if that's our exception there.
And I'm curious, so I would think like Department of Public Health or Healthcare Services, that would be some kind of a licensing or regulatory agency. I don't know anything about what they license or how they do with hospitals.
Or maybe that section needs more clarification too.
Yeah, because Department of Mental Health, Healthcare Services administers the Medicare or Medi-Cal program. So I wonder if tying it back to that.
Public health.
Yeah, public health. They do skilled nursing facilities. They do radiation technology. They do a lot of healthcare type, tobacco cessation programs, those kinds of things. I mean, we could certainly look at it, but my first inclination would be to look at the Department of Healthcare Services to see what they're doing. I don't know, Steve, you used to work there. Do you have any clue?
I worked in a very random place in their Medi-Cal procurement, but yes, they do Medi-Cal and the licensing. I think they do license. The health, some of the facilities and stuff, and work with that. So, that could be possibly. What about? Instead of sites, would organization be a word or something to that effect that we could use? Any?
I'm looking at Roseanne and
because, and especially if we're talking about going with telehealth, we're really, we're looking at this where, clients can be anywhere, supervisors can be anywhere. Make the push, and maybe it's somehow with the language, I don't know how it would be with like interpreting it as an organization instead of site. Beyond getting rid of the, settings themselves.
Right.
I think that would be possibly, that's my, so.
Entity, organization.
Entity, organization.
Organization or entity, I'm just thinking about, it's the word site that is problematic.
Yeah, because that's the problem I have with that is you really if we were to be able to go in and as a regulatory agency saying, okay, site, how do we determine that? You're like, it's a campus. I mean, you can't really. It's very difficult. It would be very difficult for us to, look at that and regulate that. I couldn't. So I kind of like to have it's a personal thing. I like to have language in there that actually we can look at and say, oh, that's either a good thing or a bad thing. Here, I don't know,
And telehealth, we're just going to be moving more. I mean, there's more and more remote anyway, like spread out all over all the professions.
Yeah.
So Roseanne, what do you think in terms of if we incorporated entity or business or corporations?
I like organization because that would, I'm trying to think of the actual intent of that sentence. And the intent is if it's a small professional corporation, because this has to accompany everything. It's Kaiser, but it's more of like a small company that's organized as a professional corporation. If we say organization, that's still narrow enough that that the person has to be providing services to clients at the same organization. So that could be within the Kaiser system. That encompasses all three of their branches. But for like a smaller company, it still implies that, if you have a small private practice and you're bringing in an outside supervisor, you're not going to have a bunch of different branches of your organization. It's still got to be in the office. So I think it's still, the intent is still there, that it's still, I think that's the better word.
What about business entity?
I don't like, so what about instead, it could be health provider or just provider. When we go to the can of worms, because it has to do with status, profit, non-profit, and all that. It could overlap exempt status with the non-exempt status. I don't know. I thought maybe provider could be the same provider. Is that too generic?
And Kim? Yeah, are you raising your hand or? Okay. So we have organization, we have entity or business entity, right? What is the other option here? Provider. Okay, so we got 4 options. So while you guys are thinking, I know Mr. How do you pronounce your last name? Mr. M.H. Nguyen? Nguyen? Would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you very much for this opportunity. I can see the struggles. I'm an employee of Kaiser Permanente. I'm located in TPMG, is the medical clinic. So everybody around me are medical nurses, doctors. There's no social workers. I'm the only one. However, I have a very intense and rewarding experience as a clinical social worker, and I've done clinical supervision in the past. My thought about the issue are 2 things. Number one, when the patient signs a contract with Kaiser, they only sign with one entity, and that is Kaiser Health Plan, which happens to be a nonprofit entity. And then within that health plan, they would get providers. And the providers are Kaiser Hospital Foundation that provide hospital services. And they provide, and then we get the Permanente Medical Group, which is the physicians group. So the professional services, the professional corporation really binds the work of the doctors and not anybody else, not the MSWs or the ASWs, the LCSWs that are employed by them, because we are the providers to the Kaiser Health Plan. So if you look at that model, the only the people that the patients come into contact with are Kaiser Health Plan, and not with Kaiser Foundation or hospitals or the professional group. So that's one way you can look at it. Is in that perspective, there are 3 organizations, but which are the primary that the patients are part of, and all of the providers are obligated to serve that patient, that one patient that signs a contract with the entire organization. So that's my first comment. And my second comment is that the social workers, because they're surrounded by so much medical staff, non-social work staff, it is very important to open access to supervision as much as possible. Within Kaiser, they're trying very hard to make sure all of the ASWs that touches patients to get some form of clinical supervision by the licensed person, whether or not they are on a licensing track. So, anything that the board can do, that the regulation can do to enable that and not to interfere with that process would be great. I like the fact that it's the terms a business entity, because that's true, or an organizations, also, anything that do away with a site, because we're in the world of telehealth, and also the way that Kaiser is set up is we go by regions. For example, I work in San Jose, but I also have very close communications with all of my colleagues and patients in Santa Clara site, or even Redwood City, so that fluidity is very important for patient care, and that should be recognized and supported in the language. Thank you very much.
Christina, we can't hear you.
But she's not muted either.
No, she isn't.
No, I touched the wrong button.
Okay.
Thank you. See, this happens to everybody. So, thank you so much. I think that brings another layer, to the kind of the structure, because it's not just about those three groups, but also seems like, the TBMG, looks like it's kind of like a contractor, with the Kaiser. And so that is really complicated. So, but thank you so much, Mr. How do you pronounce your last name again? Nguyen. Yeah, Nguyen. So awesome. So I think that's really important for us to, to really find a vocabulary, to basically embrace, that complexity of the kind of how do we define, or how do we, describe, so that we can be inclusive, with the Kaiser's different layers of the structure. So yes, Kim, go ahead.
Here's what unless Roseanne has something set ready now to go on replacing the word site with some of the other suggestions we have, I'm wondering if we can take the rest of the comments and then staff can go back and maybe rework that language with some options for that word that may or may not work. I don't know, how does that sound to you, Roseanne?
I think that we've kind of got the options. My opinion is that, and I'd be interested to see what Sabina says about this, is that either organization or provider works best, because to me, business entities, I could argue that Kaiser has 3 business entities.
Right.
So I would have more of a hard time arguing that it has 3 providers or organizations. I don't know, but that could be just me and my perspective.
I like provider.
So Kim, I think you have a really good suggestion, because I think for now, if we have to, come up with some sort of acceptable language, it seems kind of impossible. So go ahead, Sabina.
And I think it's worth a little bit of looking around with that regulatory agency language to try to really either clean up that language or really figure out because we don't really have an idea about really what that does apply to. So it might be worth looking into, because that might cover, this partially anyway.
Right.
Okay.
So I think there are 2 ways that you can poke it, because definitely you can work on the language, but on the other hand, Roseanne can explore, that particular clause. So we can, I'm thinking that, we can probably, now we have the discussion, and I want to make sure that all comments are addressed before we close. But I think, that's the direction where we're going. So we're not going to make any comments today. No, not decisions. Yeah, today, or recommendation. So, so I want to make sure that, the Kaiser social workers and employees, do you guys have any more comments, or from the public, actually open to everybody?
Yeah, well, this is Jennifer.
Yeah.
And going back to Kim's question about basically where do you go from here? I'm actually the chair of our Regional Labor Management Partnership Committee, and under that, we have our LCSW Supervision Committee. And for the last 4 years, we've been working on our supervision. And again, we've been focusing, we actually wrote a proposal based on the former BBS, laws. And then once the laws change, we're in the process of revamping it. So anything you can do, if we're able to get this settled, it would really help us because it's been a long time coming. And we've had some of our members who are stuck because Kaiser is their only employer. And unless we're able to get this together, their hours are expiring and they're stuck. We have new people who are coming in and like, what do you mean? We can't get supervision. So we're really trying to get that done. And we really appreciate you giving us, the opportunity to, to share with you and to, specifically to help us out.
Thank you, Jennifer. I have no doubt, this is definitely a burning issue, for many Kaiser's associates. So thank you so much for bringing it to our attention. I think it will be Josie and then Latrina. Josie, go ahead.
Sorry, again with the buttons. So I guess a couple of things. I would just, in terms of the conversation about the organization provider entities, because we're a number of entities, I would vote, I would advocate for organization because it covers, it's more comprehensive. The other thing I wanted to say is I sit on that committee with Jennifer, and so do the other participants that have spoken. And yes, we're just desperate to raise our skill sets and operate at a higher level. Those of us that traveled through this path, that myself included, it's been a really long slog. So we would so be grateful if some decisions could be made. And even the other consideration I would wonder if you could take on is maybe allowing TPMG to have outside providers provide that supervision, just because without that requirement of having to be, as it stands now, on site, because it's such an enormous barrier specific to TPMG at this point, or at the very least having, KFH provide that supervision. But because of the large amount of ASWs that we have, it would be a helpful workaround while we're waiting to get everything sorted out. Thank you.
Yes, I think, Roseanne, probably, we can, see how we can work around, sites or organization or entity, and then add another layer about like the contract, not contracted provider, but, something like that. So I think, again, it's about the language, and we totally understand, how important it is. So I also know that, okay, and then Latrina, that's right, before I forgot.
Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to hear our ploy. Really what we're talking about is a basic social work code of ethic. We're talking about that ethical principle of equity. Right now, there is disparity in the laws that are impacting our employees, and we're really hoping to level that playing field and have an equitable solution. Just as Josie, I really like the definition of organization as well, because organization is all-encompassing, and it really is a true definition and a descriptor of our multifaceted employer. Kaiser has a very savvy business model in that we're really looking at service areas, and we're also looking at ways that we can best utilize our talents. So it's very possible that a social work manager or an LCSW supervising ASWs and LCSWs may be employed or maybe supervising at a number of sites, but not be an employee of any of those sites. They may be more of a regional employee, but supervising at various sites. Kaiser is very mindful in the way that they provide services. So using the term organization would make it more encompassing and easier for social workers to access. And as Joe, and the spirit again of parity, I also ask that we look at the language in terms of seeking an outside supervisor if there is not a legitimate supervisor. In the recommended changes, the outside supervisor would need to be identified by the organization, by the employer. If you are working for a nonprofit, the supervisee has the opportunity to find a supervisor, and through a letter of agreement signed by the supervisee, the supervisor, and the organization, they can proceed with supervision. I'm hoping that we employ a similar tactic for those that are working in the organization that is a for-profit organization. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, okay, so Jennifer, I know we have a number of people waiting.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
Okay. Oh, I didn't see that. Okay. Okay. I just have one sentence.
Yeah, go ahead. Go.
Oh, the sentence is that about 50% of our membership are TPMG. So it's a significant problem. We have about 700 members and about 50% of them are TPMG. That's all.
Yes, yes, we definitely see the magnitude, how many people are being, the associates being affected. So thank you, Jennifer. And I would like to invite Lisa, give us, tell us who's next.
Okay, I'll go in order. We have Rebecca Gonzalez.
Rebecca.
No. I feel I have a question, and it's kind of going in a different direction, but I also want to thank, or I want to just say that we are supporting, our social workers in Kaiser and want to support their efforts. But my question is for Roseanne. Does the contracting out have any, does AB5 play into this at all? Are there any implications on allowing the use of the independent contractors?
So it's kind of two different things. If the organization can legally do it, and then they can contract as far as we're concerned. It's more about they need to make sure that they're legally doing it. It's permitted by us, but it also has to be permitted by employment law.
Okay. I assume they've looked at that, but just an interesting question. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Rebecca, and thanks for your patience. Thank you. So Lisa, who's next?
Yes, Kurt Wilhelm.
Hi, Kurt.
Oh, I know that this makes a lot of sense in an organization like Kaiser's that has so many pieces and moving parts and has a lot of barriers to associates here. I am noticing in practices in Southern California that seem to be moving towards the greater good of co-locating a nonprofit that allows to have trainees and associates volunteer alongside and in the same location as a for-profit business. So, some of what Kim was speaking to as far as and some of this debate around what the correct terminology is makes sense when we have things like Kaiser, which is, a behemoth in and of itself. But when we look at tiny corporations that have tiny nonprofits attached that foreseeably could be taking advantage of any loopholes here, I do really encourage the language to include the regulatory oversight that Kim had suggested to limit the opportunities to take advantage of these kinds of loopholes.
Thank you so much, Kurt. So Roseanne's taking notes. So thank you. Thank you so much, Kurt, for your, reminding us about that, little loophole too. Thank you. So Lisa, who's next?
James Maddox.
Hi, Mr. Maddox.
Hello again. You'll probably run me out with this one. The complexity of Kaiser seems to me requires that the internal personnel work on the wording and the plan to bring before the proposal, because it is so complex that an internal understanding will impact how they develop the needs in the plan. And essentially what you need is a macro social worker. And yeah, I'm available.
Thank you for the advertisement. So, and thank you for your comments. But in a nutshell, I think that understanding about, how Kaiser, the whole, the structure, I think that's definitely the key, for our staff to work on it too. So thank you.
But again, I think that's and I'm new to social work. So I spent 25 years in business. So I tend to be right to the point. What's missing is an understanding for the board that's presented by Kaiser that makes sense, instead of the board trying to get their hands around a very complex organization. And if you want to make your deal happen, you got to make it easier for your client.
Yes.
And your client in this case for Kaiser is the board.
So,
like I told you, you're going to run me out.
No, I am not running you out. No, I think you have a really good point. I think, that, we know how complex, how complicated it is, for the Kaiser structure. And so, and this is exactly the reason, why we're also opening up this conversation. And I think eventually, that through this kind of feedback, and we will find a way, to make it very, very inclusive. But at the same time, it's two-way street. We can do all the research about, Kaiser organization, but at the same time, we also equally important want to hear about the struggle from the social worker, from the line staff, or from the other ASWs and the supervisors. So yes, thank you so much for your comments, and I'm not running you out yet. So thank you. Okay, so Lisa.
Yes.
Next.
We have Kiona Robinson.
Hi, Kiona.
Hi. This question or this comment might be for Roseanne and Sabina. If instead of trying to choose possibly one word, is it possible that we can use the broader, whatever the broader term is, which sounds like provider, and then having in parentheses all of these subsets, or because I know you guys have done that a lot of times where you guys have provided maybe definitions or subsets to that broader umbrella. So it sounds like, because I know, I can understand what Kim is saying as far as the struggle to choose a word, but I think utilizing what you guys have used in the past of providing that subset, or that breaking down what an organization might look like, an entity, and maybe making it all inclusive so that it doesn't eliminate those of us that are in, private practice, or maybe those other smaller or larger nonprofit or for-profit agencies. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, that's definitely a good idea.
Definitely look at that. Yes.
Very, very good idea. So thank you, Kiana. So Lisa?
We have HD.
Hi, HD.
I'm sorry that I saw HD there and I'm laughing. My name's Helena Ditko. I do clinical policy and standards for Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health. And I can really appreciate the conversation that Kaiser is bringing, and I have to kind of agree with a few points. The language conversation is very important. If we would say provider down here in LA County, we would think of individual providers, which can be contracted or non-contracted. So I kind of tend toward the terminology of an organization. But it does have problems. So I'm going to go with Kiana and say that you really need to describe or put a definition to what you're talking about. It's a difficult thing when you're on, and I do clinical policy, so I'm always getting in the weeds with how do we define something. And it's a struggle because someone will interpret it one way and another entity will, another person even will interpret it another way. So I appreciate the definitions. So I just wanted to share Kaiser's dilemma, because I feel it, I feel you, and I feel it here as well. And we're very small in terms of what we do in social work, because it's all just mental health, but we still struggle with getting supervision for our ASWs. And I've supervised myself plenty of times. It's really difficult to be the actual practitioner in that site. If you're going to define it as a site, I might be in 5 different sites as a supervisor for those ASWs. So I appreciate the conversation though. And I wanted to thank you for that, just my points there.
No, thank you so much. I think this is important that, that we know that, like I say, the magnitude is not only applied to Kaiser,
exactly,
but to everybody, a lot of these,
exactly.
Yeah, medical groups, so that we know that, this is not just a Kaiser specific issue.
Mm-hmm.
So this is very good. And
thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. So Lisa, who's next?
I have one more at the moment anyway. Jen Alley.
Hi, Jen.
Hi, guys. So this has been a very good discussion. I appreciate the issue that Kaiser's having with their ASWs. And I want to echo the comments that whatever solution here is going to, mirror into other health organizations as we see more mergers and in the blending of the model, for example, with Sutter, with their new health plan, their medical group, their hospitals, moving more to a Kaiser-like model. So any Kaiser fix would then, apply to everybody, but the fix as it's drafted now is only for LCSWs. And we've had discussions on multiple providers and having equity in the statute with fees, accumulative fees, fines, penalties, continuing education, exempt settings, and then this one is only applied to LCSWs appropriately as the entity that brought it through. That's what they're focused on. But I would think that any solution should be made consistently in the statutes. And I see Roseanne's hands up, so she's probably going to add something to that. But we do like to see consistency as much as possible, especially when it talks about supervision.
Absolutely.
That's all.
Thank you, Jen. And Roseanne, you want to give some feedback?
It will. Whatever is decided for the LCSW law, the law is repeated for the other practice acts as well. So it will be the same language for LMFTs and LPCCs as well. See, we just used LCSWs as an example because Kaiser brought specifically social work ASWs to the forefront.
So we're all equal. We don't play favoritism, and we have no preferential treatment. So Jen, make sure you put your mind at ease. So wonderful. So any other public comments?
At this time, there are no other hands.
Wow. I think we successfully, hear everybody who are willing to speak. And so it looks like, we actually have a, pretty good information, feedback from the public. We even kind of like have an informal, vote about the preference of the word, or it looks like the word organization is the more preferred, term right now. And then I think the question about whether it should be a subsection, to describe, that organization, I think these are all good information to take into consideration. So, yeah, and Kim?
So question, what is the direction then from the committee? Do you want board staff to go back and then come up with the options and present them at the November meeting? I mean, and how doable is that? I'm going to look at my staff of Roseanne.
Right.
I can definitely look into it and try to draft something, and whether or not that's something that can be solved easily at the next meeting or not, I don't know. I would recommend, I think my suggestion would be maybe to try to discuss it again at the November board meeting, but also try to run the bill. If we're not there on the amendments in November, we can still talk about it and possibly either amend the bill while it's running in February or March, or going forward into the spring, or if we are not able to come up with a solution in that amount of time, then we could run a subsequent bill to make the amendment. I think we really need that bill because it's solving a lot of other problems, and I don't think it's creating any new problems. I think it's making something a little bit better, but not better enough. So I think that my recommendation would be to keep moving forward with the bill, but work on the fix that simultaneously.
Okay,
and
that was my thought as well.
Until we can get it right.
Yeah, because we can amend it through the process.
We can amend it, or if it's not enough time, we can still commit to making a subsequent legislation to address the issue. If it really comes to that. I don't know that it will, but we really need the bill going forward.
Okay. I think that's a good plan.
Yeah, I think I like the plan. So now we do have another PNA meeting in between the November and
February.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So we will have. Go ahead, Roseanne.
Oh, sorry. We would be stopping for an author in January, February, and then so we'd be looking at a February introduction, and then the bill would move from there. So there'd be several chances to amend it, and possibly even up through May. So I think that would be enough of a chance, but just in case it's not, I mean, then there is always the possibility of running a fix later too.
Yes, yes, definitely. So I'm really, I think, this is a good plan. So at least, the other bill, as a set, we can move forward. And then if we can continue to revise the language and making sure that, now we heard the issues and have some input. I think I'm pretty confident that we can work on it. Whether it goes straight to the board or come back to the PNA meeting, I think we have different, opportunities.
If the way I see it, if we'll try to do, there's not a lot of time between now and the November board meeting. We can try to take another crack at it. I'll do some research and look at it. It could be that more research is needed from there, but based on how that discussion goes. And if that's the case, if we aren't settled on the amendments yet, we can take it to the January or February PNA if that's necessary.
Yes.
That's my thought.
Yes, that's exactly what I thought. Normally, Roseanne and I think very alike, even telepathically. So awesome. Great. So I want to, just one more time, make sure that everybody's comment is in. And if there's no other comment, I think we can move forward because there's no action needed.
Well, Josie raised her hand again.
Oh, okay. Josie, go ahead.
I guess and I could take this offline with Kim if you would prefer, but I'm curious about the timing because I'm not really I don't understand the process. So it would be great to understand that. And certainly I can email Kim if that would be more timely for you.
Yeah, I can do that. Go ahead and send me an email, Josie, and we can give you the process. Happy to do that.
Thank you.
Okay.
And just to also remind the public, our door is not closed. If you want any feedback, you can certainly, talk to Roseanne, talk to Kim, so we can actually continue, to get your input and make our bill, make our, recommendation as smooth and as inclusive as possible.
This is not the last time you guys are going to see this.
Yes, it normally it goes like many times, just like the fee increase bill. We've seen it for many years before it comes to fruition. So, okay. So, it seems like everyone is pretty happy and hungry. So, yes. So let's pause for lunch. Let's break for lunch. And let's give it half an hour lunch. Now it's 1:12. And let's come back at 1:45. 3 minutes extra. So let's come back from 1:45. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to the board.
Oh,
I appreciate your